Alrighty, gang, and I am back once again, feeling a little better today. Except a backache, which is it's feeling a little bit better. But I thought, what better way to get my mind off a backache than to have another apples and oranges, right? So Chris is going to join me tonight. We're going to be talking all things sleepaway camp versus Return to Sleepaway Camp and what the hell happened to that movie. So we're gonna talk about all of those things. And here's something, if you love Return to Sleepaway Camp, I would love to have you on here because I think me and Chris are on the same page with Return to Sleepaway Camp. I'm pretty sure we are. Um, but if we could get somebody on here that absolutely loves this film, that would make for a nice, friendly debate. If you want to just remain in the chat and give your comments for or against that movie, or maybe you hate the original movie, that would be interesting too, because, a lot of people do like the original, but I want to hear from all sides on this. So, if you want to join in, let me know. Say, hey, Dana, can you send me that link? Or can you put the link in the chat so I can join y'all? I will be glad to do that. Hey, Candace. Every time when I look at that Death by Stereo, I'm like, who is that? Oh, yeah, that's Candace. It takes me by surprise all the time. But before, and CK would want to wring my neck if he knew I was showing off yet another thing from Joe Bob's Lost Drive-In Patreon, rather. But I did just get this in a few minutes ago from Darcy. She sent out another Blu-ray, and I thought this might have a Roger Corman memorial or Roger Corman tribute, and sure enough, it does. I believe this is Roger Corman at the Jamboree when he was at the Jamboree with Joe Bob and Darcy. But there is the Lost interview with Wes Craven on here too. I'm really interested in seeing that as well. There's of course, Joe Bob's Drive-In Totals. There's going to be something about Freddy's Dead and the Serpent and the Rainbow on here. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward. I might try to watch some of that tonight after the stream is over. Hey, Batman. Um, but I just want to let you know what's coming up for the rest of the week, and then I'll get Chris on here and we'll start talking about these two movies. So, I have to think. Tomorrow is my birthday, and it is Thursday. I'll be 48 years old, guys and gals. I'm getting to be an old woman, and I feel old today, I must say. So, um, we'll not only do this stream because I'm gonna attempt to do the Seductive Poison, the Resurgence Triple Threat Review Show. Again, I'm going to be talking about Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, Candyman, and Cannibal Ferox. How's that for a triple threat review show? Three movies that couldn't be more different from each other, in my opinion. Hey, Mayor. Mayor, I'm not sure since that is typing whether you're being facetious or if that's your honest opinion on it. I welcome that opinion because that would make for a good debate. But you say Return to Sleepaway Camp is the best film in the series. The rest of them suck. Um, hey, John. You say, hey, Dana. Hey, all. Okay, who in the heck is a big fan of Return to Sleepaway Camp that cannot exist, right? I'm not sure, John. I'm sure there is an audience for that movie somewhere. But anyway, we'll be doing that tomorrow night starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Friday, I am off because I have to work 4 hours for a Saturday shift for work. So I will be free that day. Hopefully, I'll be able to get Terror Time tea on at 11:45 sharp in the morning. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to be having a snack. I may just have tea, but we'll see. Hey, Batman, thank you for the early birthday wishes. Um, Presents are welcome. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody has to send me any presents. Uh, TJ, you say Felissa Rose doesn't even mention a return that I heard. Um, when I met her, she didn't mention Return to Sleepaway Camp at all. Of course, I didn't talk to her about it either. Mary said, "Nah, I'm just being silly. I only like the first Sleepaway Camp movie. The rest do suck, though." No, I do like the second and third ones because I think Pamela Springsteen did an excellent job with them, and I like that little bit of a black comedy element that's mixed into those. And me and Chris might talk about those too a little bit. Batman, you say, whoever's a fan of Return to Sleepaway Camp, your ass stinks. Okay, so anyway, Friday Foolish is also going on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Candace will be talking about retro toys and favorite toys from when we were kids and toy collecting and all of that good stuff. So be sure to join us for that at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Saturday, it's the return of the watch alongs, and Saturday's offerings will be Gremlins starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday will also be the return of Movie Munchies. I'm going to be making that deep red spaghetti. Hopefully, that will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time will be The Initiation starring Daphne Zuniga. So this weekend's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, my birthday weekend will be a blast. Uh, not a not an explosive blast, but a blast. I hope. Mary, you didn't like that campy comedy in them. Yeah, I can understand that. I I know some people don't like that campiness. They don't like that campiness mixed in their horror films. So I fully get that. John, you say, if I ever met Felissa, I'm going to ask her about Pamela Springsteen. I've never heard her mention her. Yeah, I don't know that she has. Um, Leslie, you say you can't wait for that one. Batman, you say, earlier this afternoon while I was taking a shower, my sister's dog picked up my dirty drawers and carried them to my niece's bedroom. Oh man, that's a crafty dog, isn't it, Batman? All right, so I am going to go ahead and add Chris here, and we're going to get started discussing these movies. Hey, Chris.
Hey Dana, how's it going?
Good. I'm actually feeling better than I was a little bit earlier. My whole body was aching from head to toe. I thought maybe I was coming down with something, but
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, especially, you don't want to be feeling bad right when your birthday's getting ready to roll around tomorrow. Uh,
no.
um, Today was actually my nephew Henley's birthday.
Oh, that's right, because I saw Candace post something on
Yeah, he's
Facebook.
6 years old today, and you know who else's birthday is tomorrow, Dana?
Robert England's birthday's tomorrow,
That's right.
and Darcy the Mail Girl's birthday's tomorrow too.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
something I
and then
didn't.
my neighbor's birthday is 3 days after mine. So it's like she'll wish me a happy birthday, then 3 days later I'll wish her a happy birthday.
Y'all
So,
should just have birthday parties together.
well, what we used to do when I hadn't lived here very long, and I, I think I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't working full time at first when I first moved in with Steve. Um, Don't tell anybody we lived in sin. We lived together a little bit, a couple of months before we got married.
Me and Candace did too. I practically lived with Candace and her family up until we got married, pretty much, because like we were dating, and like the first year, I would go back and forth, spend a few days with her at her house and come back to my house.
Mm.
But within around like the second year we was dating, I was just pretty much just staying with her almost full time.
Yeah, I mean, Steve would come and like stay with me at my parents' house, and I've told the story more than once about the first Valentine's Day me and Steve spent together as a couple. My mom actually got my dad to leave their house. He wasn't too happy about it, and they went to a hotel and let me and Steve have the run of the house. How many parents would do that? Of course, I was in my early to mid 30s at that time, so mom probably thought, well, it's not like she's 16 years old or something like that. She's a grown woman now. Um, Mayor, you say, I've been there before. I laid in bed feeling like death on my birthday. Totally ruined my birthday. Yeah, that sucks. I hate that anybody has to go through that.
But the reason I mentioned that about you and your neighbor, like just having shared parties, birthday parties or something together, because me and Candace do that. Like sometimes
Mhm.
we, because me and her are only 8 days apart. Um, she was born, September 20th, 1986, and I was
Mhm.
born 8 days later on the 28th. Um, so
My
yeah, a lot
my
of times we just
parents are
share
like
the birthday parties.
my parents are like that. Only they're only 3 days apart. Uh,
Ooh.
my dad I think my dad's is first. He was born on the October 15th. Mom was born on October 18th.
Oh wow.
And I said, you guys were meant to be married. um, but what I was going to say about me and my neighbor, Kim, um, we used to do things together on our birthday. Like one time I treated us out to both getting our hair done. We had our hair cut. Well, she had highlights put in. I actually had rainbow colors put in my hair at that point in time. One time we went to Waverly Hills, but the only thing bad about that was I got us tickets for a half night paranormal investigation where we could actually bring all, cameras and all that equipment and actually get to do an investigation. Well, I didn't know this, but Kim evidently is a highly sensitive person, whereas I had never seen anybody get sick. I had heard about it happening.
Hmm.
I never heard of anybody getting sick or never seen anybody getting sick in a haunted place. And she became physically ill. And the guide had to take her out on the roof so she could get some air. Because she was getting sick at her stomach and gagging and doing all kinds of stuff. Like I said, I never seen that happen before, just heard of it. And so she was feeling better because me and her husband Troy, we were actually doing an investigation while she was relaxing, and we
Hmm.
met her up on the roof, and we said, "Hey Kim, how you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm feeling better." But the minute she went back into the building, she started getting sick again, and it was just like a change come over her. Eyes were that big around,
Oh wow.
and she was kind of out of it. And she told me later, she said when she first started feeling weird, because I could hear her behind me the first time she got ill. And she was breathing real heavy. And I kind of half turned and said, Kim, you all right? And she said, I don't know. I thought maybe because she's quite a bit heavier than I am. And I thought maybe going up those steps and stuff might have
Hmm.
cause her to be winded. And she said, "I don't know." And then she said, "I'm going to have to get out of here." So the guide took her downstairs and said, "You sit here on these steps and I'll come back and get you in a minute." And she said while she was sitting there, she felt something behind her, like somebody was there.
Hmm.
She said she turned, there was nobody there. And she heard something that sounded like a door shut behind her. Again, nobody was there. Nobody that she could see anyway. So it was very,
Hmm.
it was eerie. I mean, me and her husband, we saw an apparition in the death tunnel or the body chute or what. Yeah, I have video of it. Now, some people don't believe me, but I swear to you, it was a lady in a long dress.
You
And
should send that to me.
I'll look that up, see if I can find the
I would
actual.
like, yeah, I would like to see that.
Mm, um, and when Steve and I went for just a 2-hour walkthrough, I took a bunch of pictures with my camera of different areas of Waverly Hills. And whenever I was looking at my pictures and I was blowing them up on the computer, one of the pictures, noticed a woman towards
Mhm.
the back. And you could see our guide who was, telling us about something, and all the people from our group were standing around there listening to her. But this woman seemed out of place. Her hairstyle was not modern. She had a hat in front of her, like she was holding a hat in front of her, had a ribbon on it. I swear to you, I could show you this picture too. I just got hunted up. And she just looked like she was observing all of us. Like, who are these people and why are they here? And I hollered at Steve. I said, "Steve, come here a second." And he was in the living room. He came back here. I said, "Do you remember that woman being in our group?" He said, "No, Dana, I don't remember that woman." He said, "That's creeping me out." And he went back in the living room. He didn't want to look at it anymore. And Steve claims he doesn't believe in ghosts and all that business, but it freaked him out. And so, like, I made a red circle around her and stuff, and I was showing this to people. Some people believe me. Some people said, "Nah, Dana, that's crap. She had to be somebody from your group." I'm saying, but look at the hair. That hair, I went back and looked, and that hairstyle that she had was very similar to hairstyles in the 20s when TB was a big deal. And Waverly Hills was a tuberculosis hospital. And so I thought, well, either she was a patient or she was a nurse there. One of the two was not.
Possibly.
So little interesting ghost stories I can
Yeah,
tell.
that is. I really like that story too, Dana. I mean, I would like to know more about that. I would like to see these pictures and videos and stuff that you got.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've got them somewhere, Chris. I gotta just hunt them up, and that way I'll send them to you.
okay.
Uh, Mayor says that was his neighbor in the long white dress. She escaped from the nursing home.
Hey, Dana, I will be right back.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm going to read while Chris is away for a second. I'm going to read through. Okay, TJ, you say the first was it campy? Two words, Aunt Martha. Well, I agree with that. Aunt Martha. I love Aunt Martha though. Um, John, you say I like part one, but part two is the best in my opinion. You think Pamela Springsteen is definitely the star of the series? Um, Candace, you say we got our first home together before we were married. I was also prego. Uh, Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says, please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. John, you say it's wild how people get sick at these haunted places. It definitely happens a lot. I live near an old Civil War battlefield in my town, and I'm curious about going out there after dark in Murfreesboro. Yeah, I mean, I believe in all that stuff, John, but I guess I never thought I would actually see anything. And when I saw something or experienced something both times that I went to Waverly, it was amazing to me. Hey, Adam. Leslie, you think I should do another paranormal show? I would love to actually. Maybe if Candace is willing for one of our upcoming Friday Foolish episodes, maybe we can do a paranormal show, and maybe I can do another like paranormal investigation, like back here in the back room, like I did. But I'd like to do that one at nighttime. Leslie, you say you have a couple of friends who are investigators. Well, Adam, I mean, I respect your opinion that they don't exist. However, I cannot explain there's no explanation to me other than these were ghosts or entities. Now, this is not me arguing with you. You can fully have your own opinion about that, and I will respect it. But my belief is that they're real. John, you say, I've seen too much weird shit not to believe in ghosts and other worldly things. I believe in all of it, to be honest. Uh, Blissful says, John, same, especially in my house, we have a few occupants. Mary, you say, honestly, though, my neighbor just did leave the nursing home. She's in bad shape. She can't take care of herself. And the ambulance has come for her multiple times in the last couple of days. Wow. That, that's sad, though. TJ, you think next apples and oranges should be ghost? LOL. Hey, we can do that, TJ. That I think that would actually be a good thing to discuss. Um, Adam, you say, "Oh, I know you're good, Dana." Well, thank you, Adam. I knew you didn't mean anything like towards me or anything. You think just people's minds make them see things and believe things they want to see and want to believe. Um, but I would love to show you guys, especially you guys and gals that haven't seen my picture from. I'm not trying to force y'all to believe or not believe in anything. But I would love to show everybody that picture again and perhaps show that video. Um, hey, Twisted Trucker. Yes, John, I agree. It'd be a fun show to hear stories about. Um, Chris is not quite back yet, so if y'all want, I don't want to start talking about the movies really until Chris gets back. But we can, talk back and forth about ghosts or whatever till he gets back. Mayor, you say, have a ghost debate ectoplasm or sheets. That that would be good. Yeah, I would definitely. I mean, TJ, that's a fantastic idea. And I really would like to run with it. So that may very well be the next apples and oranges. I think that is just absolutely fantastic. Um, Plus, I'd like to hear other people's opinions on ghosts and all of that. Whether you believe in them, don't believe in them, on the fence about them, whatever. We could have a whole bunch of people on here talking about it. TJ, you giving me permission to use that one? Well, bless your heart. Thank you. Batman, you say, I know that you have the recent Evil Dead game, but do you have Fistful of Boomstick and Regeneration and Hail the King on PS1? I have the newest one, Batman. I'm forgetting which one that is, but the newest one that came out, I do have. But that one's for the PlayStation 5 because that's what Steve has now. And I thought that I thought I had Hail to the King, maybe Hail to the King, or maybe the first. I don't know whichever one was the first Evil Dead game. I think I had for computer. John says he loves those games. So I guess it's official. The next apples and oranges will be about ghosts. So if you want to come on live with me for that, um, please let me know. Hey, Chris, while you were gone, TJ came up with the idea that I should have apples and oranges about ghosts, and we all could have a good, healthy debate on
I
the
think that would be
existence
an
or
interesting
not.
one. Yeah, that would
Mm.
be very interesting. Sorry about that. I had to take off
No
for a
problem.
second. My neighbor came over and was talking to me about something. So, eh, I guess I should probably let him know. I was like, well, I'm going to do a live stream. It's pretty important. But no, it wasn't nothing big. So, yeah, but sorry about that. I had to step away
Oh,
for a
no problem. We were just talking back and forth about games and
second.
uh, ghosts and different things. Yeah, Blissful, that would be awesome if your friends that are investigators. I would love to have them on here talking about stuff too. That would be fantastic if we could do that. Mary, you say you don't like being on the fence. It hurts your ass crack when you sit on fence posts.
Before I left, you were talking about Waverly Hills, though. Like,
Hmm.
now I have been on the premises of Waverly Hills, but I've never been inside because I want to say, what was this, 2005 or 2006? Um, they had this tour going called the Sounds of the Underground tour, and like Lamb of God and Guar and Hate Breed and a bunch of different bands were on that. It was like so it was like a 1 day thing, and they set up there on the grounds of Waverly Hills and had this big
Oh,
concert thing with
cool.
all these people, and that was the first and only concert that you ever had on the grounds of Waverly Hills, because after that there was so much like complaints and issues by like the people that lived in the area around Waverly Hills, the
Hmm.
noise complaints and everything. And then apparently there was a lot of like people that attended that was getting drunk, and after the show was wandering into people's yards, and like
Oh,
some guy I think got arrested because he was pissing in somebody's yard.
oh gosh.
um, and it was just a big, like, huge rigmarole. And but yeah, I was at that for this one and only concert at Waverly Hills, and but that's my experience. I said I've never actually been inside Waverly Hills, but like we they're on the side where where like the death chute is.
Yeah.
So everybody that was going to that music festival thing had to walk by that, because they had like this big, huge like area where there was nothing out there behind
Hmm.
the Waverly Hills building, and that's where they had like the stage built and everything. Uh,
Right.
but
Well, I tell you what, Chris, if me and you and Candace can ever get together on a good time for y'all to come to Louisville, I'll make sure we get tickets to go
oh,
on a tour.
I'll do it for sure, but I can't guarantee that Candace will.
You don't want to go in there.
I
Well,
mean,
I tell you what we can do. We can go on the 2 hour guided tour.
mhm,
They take you around, and that's where I got the picture of the lady that was standing like behind our group.
yeah.
So, now the investigation that takes place like half the night, I don't know if Candace would want to do that. That was like 6 hours.
Yeah, probably not. We have done like those ghost tours and stuff places before. We went to Myrtle's Plantation down in Louisiana during our honeymoon, and that place was featured on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and it's considered one of the most haunted places in America. And I believe it 100%. If I didn't believe in anything like that before, I did on our visit there. And I believed it before even what Candace had told me afterwards. So upon part of the tour we were on, the tour guy was telling us about, I think it was like a little girl spirit would like to come and play with people's jewelry and stuff.
Yeah.
So Candace, for years, I mean, and this was about 4 years after we had started dating, and as long as I knew her, and she had this before I even knew her too. She had this earring, and it was basically like welded shut in her ear. She could never take it out.
Uh,
And after that tour we took at Myrtle's Plantation, we came back to the hotel room that night, and that earring fell out. So and it just got us thinking, well, that lady was talking about how there was a little girl spirit or whatever that liked to play with people's jewelry and stuff. And then there was just some other things that Candace could tell you more, but I can't really, recall all the details on. But, there was just a lot of stuff within that tour. And we have pictures, just like you said, you have too. There's one of this mirror, and you could definitely, if you look at it long enough, you can start pulling a bodily image that's in that mirror, and you can see the eyes and everything, and it is very, very eerie, and it really, really it. I mean, it had my stomach feeling queasy to where I was looking at this and like, oh wow, this could really be something. Um, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot to that, and I'm sure. And Candace is the type of person that will go into more detail about that because she had more stuff happen to her than I did to me.
well, when we do the apples and oranges on Ghost, which I guess I'll plan that for next week, next Wednesday. Um, if Candace wants to come on, because she says, "Oh, there's so much I can tell you about that trip," I would love her to, if she feels comfortable coming on here and can come on here and share some stories. Um, oh, we'll definitely do that. How about the next Friday Foolish we do after this one, Candace? Let's 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 do paranormal stuff. I mean, nothing says I can't do a bunch of shows about paranormal because
Yeah.
people seem to find that very interesting, even if they don't believe or don't believe fully. They still find it interesting to hear people talk about it. Um, so yeah, we'll plan to do that. And Candace Hustle said, she said, "Oh, well, Dana, I've always wanted to go, but I'm too much of a sensitive with what happened to me at Myrtle's Plantation. I'll have to think about it." Well, you think about it and you discuss it with Chris, and if y'all decide that that's something, like I said, it's just a 2-hour tour with a guide, um, and they take you around to several different places in Waverly Hills, including the Death Tunnel or Body Chute or whatever you want to call it. Um, but the thing about the 2-hour tour, they don't leave you alone in dark places. When we did the 6-hour paranormal investigation, they would take us to a spot and they said, "Okay, we're going to leave you here for 30 to 45 minutes." And then the guide would come back and take you to another part of Waverly Hills and you would investigate that part. And that kept on all night until like 6 a.m. And then everybody went back down to the gift shop area and you handed back. It's so cool. They give you these passes to get in when you do that investigation, but you got to give them back whenever you leave. You got this fancy looking pass that has a ghostly image and stuff on it. I was like, dang, I don't want to have to give this back, but um, yes, Candace, you've told me some of the stuff your dad had.
Oh, Carl told some awesome ghost stories because they grew up in Xenia, Ohio, and it was just right down the road from the Wright Patterson Air Force Base.
Mhm.
And he said they witnessed all kinds of like really spooky stuff growing up. Him and his brother Bobby, and that was just yeah. Carl, I always told Carl, I was like, man, you could write a book with some of these stories because, I mean, I know if I'm finding them super interesting, I know a lot of other people would find them interesting, and that's something I wish he had done. And because I've tried telling some of his stories that he's told me, past like to Noah and different people, but I can't tell them the same way he did. So
Well, I'm too much of a I think I'm too much of a rambler to tell really good stories.
yeah, me too.
I get, I go off on a tangent and then I come back and I go off on another tangent. And it's just
I do the same thing.
because I get excited when I'm talking about something either that I'm really super interested in or passionate about. And I'll be going 15 different directions at one time. And it's hard to follow somebody when they do that. And I know that it's hard to follow me sometimes. Um, but I'm going to attempt to make sense when me and Candace do this both the Friday Foolish and when I do a apples and oranges
It's
talk.
okay either way. It's okay either way because I mean, you just do you, Dana. You tell it how you. That's how because I used to be down on myself about how I tell stories and how I just the way things I would just talk to people. And I'm like, I said I can't. I gotta stop being like that because I mean that's me. I can't change me when it comes to that aspect. I mean, I just have to. That's people just want to deal with me, I guess.
Um, so I guess, well, y'all can keep talking about ghosts. We can interject ghost stuff in here, but I guess we'll go ahead and start talking about. Yeah, I freaked Candace out already. I've told her some stories. Uh, we'll get started talking about Sleepaway Camp and Return to Sleepaway Camp. Now, I do have my copy, my Blu-ray of Sleepaway Camp. You can see it's signed by two people. I had this signed by both Felissa Rose and Catherine Comey, who played Meg in the movie. And if you, Felissa Rose, I've said over and over and over again how sweet and nice and appreciative she is of her fans, and that you definitely should meet her
Yeah.
at least once. Heck, it couldn't hurt to meet her 2 or 3
I
times.
mean,
She's so
and you
nice.
have plenty of opportunities to meet her because it's one she's publicly said that coming to conventions is one of her favorite things to do,
Yeah.
and
You
she
can
loves
tell.
meeting all the fans, and she does like oh my god, it seems like she's doing like one every other week or something. She does so many conventions a year. And she's been a guest a few times, and she's kind of a regular character on there too on Joe Bob. Um, but he mentioned that
She's the mangled dick expert.
yeah, yeah, that's her regular character on there. But he had mentioned to her one time I think it was one of the first times he interviewed her for the last drive-in when they were showing Sleepaway Camp, and just talking about how she goes to all these conventions and stuff, and but yeah, like if you've not met her, or if you ever have the opportunity to meet her again, if you have met her. It's worth it every time because like like Dana says, like a lot of people have said, like they're not kidding. She is possibly the nicest person you'll ever meet as far as celebrity wise at these conventions.
Mhm. But in addition to that, Catherine Comey was also like she's nothing like her character of Meg in the movie. She was a bitch as Meg, but in real life, when you meet her, she's just as sweet as can be. And I actually took two different pictures with me when I met her. One where she was looking stern and pointing at me, and one where we were both smiling. So she was like, "Let's do another one, and I'll be like a mean Meg." Um, but she was really sweet as well.
Now I've met her, but I only have a photo op with her. I never actually got to go up to her table and like talk with her and stuff because literally, I at Scarefest last year they had that Sleepaway Camp reunion and they did the photo op where it was Felissa Rose, Catherine Kami, Christopher Collett. I forget the girl's name that plays Judy was there, and then the guy that played Mike. So I did that photo op with all of them, and it was literally like 2 seconds. Went in there, posed with them, and I
Yeah.
was out of there. So I didn't really get to talk with any of them with that one. So the only one I've ever got to talk with is Felissa Rose, but that was at a Scarefest years ago. But from what I have been told, like everybody that was there for the movie at Scarefest, the people that did meet them, because I know Uncle Bill did go, I think, meet all of them, and he got his original Sleepaway Camp one sheet signed. And just everybody has said they were all super nice. And like you said, the character of Meg is a bitch in the movie, and so is Judy. But
Yeah.
like from what I'm told, everybody said that they were like super nice, like the people.
Oh, I just remembered Judy's real name, Karen Fields.
Yes, Karen Fields. Um, but yeah, I also follow them on Instagram too, and I know that Karen Fields that plays Judy, she posts a lot of stuff on her Instagram about Sleepaway Camp, and she posts videos like talking about all the fans. Because I think she just started maybe doing conventions again in the last couple of years. I think she took a break for several years from doing them. And so she's super appreciative of all the fans and stuff too.
John's mentioned Scarefest. He said this year is going to be amazing. Don Coscarelli. I've met Don
Yeah.
Coscarelli. He's a cool guy.
And that's one that I was hoping for, John, because I've mentioned it several times here on Dana's streams about Scarefest this year, and
Mhm.
I know they were doing a Phantasm thing. I was like, I hope they get Don Coscarelli because that's one of the people from the film that I've not seen at a convention. I've never met, and Phantasm is one of my favorite. The original Phantasm is one of my favorite horror films of all time. Um, and even Phantasm 3 is right up there with it. Like Phantasm 3 actually might be my favorite Phantasm film.
I think my least favorite Phantasm film is Ravager.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Ravager made me sad. That
Um,
just made me depressed.
well, I have watched the series through again since the last time I seen the first time I seen Ravager, but I don't I don't watch it now. I don't just that's just for me personally. I don't consider it a part of the series anymore. I just because it. I don't know, Dana. It like I said, this is not like
It
this should
doesn't
not have been.
feel like a Phantasm film at
No, it
all.
does not. I was like this should have never happened. That's just my opinion. But just I was like, this no, just no.
I was like, I looked at Steve. I've watched it one time, and I'm like you, Chris. I haven't went
Yeah.
back and watched it. I try not to think about it because it's not a Phantasm film. I was like, I looked over at Steve when they got to the part where they were saying that Reggie was senile and he
Mhm.
was in the nursing home. I was like, what in the hell are they doing? What is this
I
stuff?
don't. I still don't know. But Ben says Ravager was shot to be a web series. You can tell. You can
Yeah,
tell
you,
by the
you can tell
quality of
that. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But anyway, back to Sleepaway Camp. We could do a whole thing on the Phantasm series, and we could talk about how bad Ravager is. Um, but I remember. Well, since Chris is my guest, I'm gonna let him talk about let. Uh, just share your experiences, Chris, about the first time you ever watched Sleepaway Camp.
Oh
What
my
your
gosh.
thoughts were and all that.
That was a long
As
time
much
ago.
as you can remember.
Um, so the first time I ever seen Sleepaway Camp, I was in my early teens. So this was early to probably 2000, 2001, somewhere around that when I first ever seen Sleepaway Camp, because I had seen it for years growing up in my local video store.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I always thought the cover was cool with the knife going through the shoe. To me,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite posters of all time. Is the original Sleepaway Camp poster. But I just I never did rent it or anything picking it as I was growing up. But like I said, when I was a teenager, I was about, or I might not even been a teenager. I was probably maybe like 12 years old or something. But I remember renting it finally from a local video store, which is called Superstar Video. And it. I was already a fan of the Friday the 13th series, and where that was based around. A lot of those movies were based around camp, and that the whole camp thing in slasher films is why I love those so much. Originated from the Friday the 13th film, from my love for that. So when I started watching Sleepaway Camp, it kind of starts off. It's just giving this backstory on Angela and her brother Peter and everything that happened that on their boating trip and stuff. And but as it like kind of goes on, it starts getting to the camp part of things, whereas it's Angela's older and everything. And I'm like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching it, and like I thought a lot of the kills were super creative.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters in the film are very likable. Some of them are unlikable, but they're there, they're memorable. Even if you don't like some of the characters, if because a lot of characters in the film are actually jerks, but
Yeah.
but they're super memorable jerks.
Yeah.
And that ending of it is just like that. Watching that for the first time, was not expecting anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, so like it instantly at that time became one of my favorite horror films that I had seen up to that date. And and because of that, I had seen the Friday the 13th films and the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Halloween films and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff. But those were all super mainstream by that time in the early 2000s. I mean, people that weren't even necessarily horror fans, but would casually watch horror films here and there, knew what all those films were.
Yeah.
But I would not hear any kind of casual fans talk about Sleepaway Camp. And that's what really kind of like Sleepaway Camp was one of those films that really kick-started my interest in watching these more obscure slasher films, and which would develop like an obsession basically for me over time to this day. And Sleepaway Camp is up there. The original Sleepaway Camp is up there as one of my favorite slashers of all time.
And I would have to echo that, the last thing that Chris said. Well, actually, everything that Chris said, pretty much. Um, Me with Sleepaway Camp. Here's what happened with me and Sleepaway Camp. We're gonna go way back in Dana's history of watching horror movies to the time when my family first got a VCR, and we were late adopters of a VCR. We never had a top loading VCR. By the time we got one, we had a front loader. So the people that were early adopters probably had a top loading VCR, or they tried Betamax or whatever. Did anybody, Chris? Did you ever watch a movie on Betamax?
No, but I do have some Betamax tapes, but I don't have a player for them. So I've never watched anything from that.
Because it was always, I always heard that Betamax was better quality than VHS, but the
Hmm.
VHS won out. And uh, I just wonder what would have happened. Like how would the landscape been different if Beta had won out instead of VHS?
I don't think it would be much different. I mean, because even though I've never watched a Betamax tape, they're it's kind of the same premise with
Right.
VHS. Um, and but I think it would have, you know,
Played out
developed pretty
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 much.
much the same way with DVDs, and everything, than Blu-rays. But you never
Um,
know.
but during this time period, and I've talked about this before, when we first got our VCR, we just went VHS crazy. My family did. My dad would stop at this little convenience store that we called the Quick Pick,
Hmm.
back when I was a kid, and you could get chicken and taters there. The country girl in me is coming out there. Taters. I'm mentioning taters. If you don't know what taters are, you might be saying, you northern people might be saying, "What in the hell are you talking about taters, Dana?"
Well, would you say that, Dana? And not to cut you off, but it
No,
just
no, no.
reminded
Go
me of
ahead.
something because if anybody has seen Lord of the Rings, especially the second one, Two Towers, there's a scene in that, and they've people have memed this like a million times, and it's a scene between Samwise Gamgee and Gollum, and so Sam is like, he's cooking these taters over a fire,
Mm.
and Gollum says, "Taters? What's taters, hobbitses?" and and Sam's like, "Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew." I love that.
Well,
I
I
love Lord.
love that too, and I haven't even seen that, but just you describing that, oh, it's so cool. But yeah, potatoes, basically potato wedges. If I want to be specific, but here in these parts, and in Chris and Candace's neck of the woods, we call them taters.
Yeah,
So that's the correct way
tater
to,
wedges and
yeah, tater wedges.
uh,
Um,
fried taters.
But at one time, Quick Pick had the best chicken and taters that you could get. And somewhere along the way, they fell off the map. But anyway, so they also had a section of videotapes for rental at
Mhm.
Quick Pick. So Dad would finish his shift at the tile plant in the little bitty town of Lewisport. I'm talking little people. You people that have lived your whole life in big cities, if you came to Lewisport, you would say, "Oh my God, what kind of hole in the wall place is this?" You know. Um, so Dad would leave his shift at work, and then he'd stop by the Quick Pick. Sometimes he'd get chicken and taters and bring home a couple of videos for us to watch. So one night or one evening, he brought home Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. And I remember clearly my dad telling me, of course, by the time he brought the movies home, they were in those plastic cases. It didn't have the VHS cover
Right.
on it. But the VHS cover on the wall was what caught his eye. Because for Sleepaway Camp 2, it had supposedly Angela. That was not Pamela Springsteen. It was
Nah,
a model that they had used. But in her backpack, she had like a hockey mask and a
and
Freddy
Freddy's
glove and
glove.
stuff like that. And it said, when you go camping, just remember to take the essentials. That was like the tagline on there. And Dad said he saw the hockey mask, the Freddy glove, and he thought of me because I was a huge Friday 13th fan, huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan at that point. And so he said, I thought of you, Dana, and I noticed that they had part two and part three. So I just got both of them.
Hmm.
So I remember me and mom and dad specifically sitting down and watching these. Now, some people may think, "Oh God, you had awful parents. They let you sit down and watch Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 with all that sex and violence and cursing and all that stuff in it." But it was pretty much open season at my house with movies, with the few exceptions that I've mentioned before, things like I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left, and some of the grittier, more explicit types of things. Anything else was pretty much fair game at my house. And look at me, I turned out okay, fairly sane and all that stuff. So, Twisted Trucker, you say Data's parents are awesome. Well, I'll have to tell them that, Twisted Trucker. They would appreciate that, I'm sure. Um, so I remember watching those two and just falling in love with them. Meanwhile, I remember, just like Chris was talking about, seeing that iconic image for Sleepaway Camp with the knife going through the tennis shoe
Mm-hmm.
and the word Sleepaway Camp on there, and you won't be coming home. That tagline on there, that very ominous tagline. And if you flipped it over on the back, you would see it appeared that a camper was writing a note to their parents, and then something happened to them at some point because the letter just stops abruptly. Okay. So that was always so iconic. That cover would catch your eye. It'd make you want to pick it up and flip it over and read about what this movie was. But for whatever reason, I never rented it. I never bought it. I actually remember seeing where we could buy it. And it was either at, I don't know if anybody else ever had a TGMY store, but we had a store called 3D, and we also had a store at one time called TGMY.
Were they like mom and pop stores, like independently owned and run, or
They must have been independently owned. They weren't like
they
Walmart's.
were like chain stores?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but they were pretty much like, a store, like a general merchandise store when
Yeah,
you
we
were in.
had a place like that. Well, it was about like 10 minutes away from where my house was, where I grew up, in a city called Martin, Kentucky, and they used to have this store called EP Grigsby's, and it was like a department store type thing, like, but it was, it was independently ran, owned by that family. And they would get a lot of, like, they had a lot of stuff that like other places like Walmart and
Mhm.
Kmart and places had, but it was a lot smaller. And um, they had like a toy section. I remember going to the toy section in there when I was a kid, and they'd have a lot of things that were like at Walmart previously, but
Mhm.
like they were, have you ever been to Ollie's?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, how Ollie's get stuff from like the major like stores like Walmart, Target, and places like that. And after a while, after they're not selling at those stores good, that's a lot of that stuff will get distributed to Ollie's, and they'll
Right.
sell them at discount prices. That's how that store that I grew up with, EP Grigsby's, was ran, because pretty much everything in there that you get was all discounted. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I miss stuff like that. There's nothing like that
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, they don't have those stores anymore, those
No.
kind of stores. Now, I remember 3D had the best masks at Halloween time, and I'm talking those latex over the head masks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember buying a skull mask. It was, I believe it was a red skull, and it had some kind of glow in the dark paint on the
Oh,
forehead.
cool.
So that when I put it on, turned out the lights, and looked at myself in the mirror, that part of that would glow. So, you know,
What
see,
year was that? Do you remember?
oh my gosh, that was probably, it was probably early to mid 80s.
Okay. I want to see if I can. I'm curious. I want to see if I can maybe find something on eBay about it.
Yeah, but yeah, that would be,
Was it
that'd be
like a
cool.
latex mask or?
Yeah, it was a latex or rubber mask or whatever you want to call that, and it was the coolest thing ever. But as anybody knows, after a while, a lot of those latex masks will
Mhm.
break down, and I'm not sure that's what happened. And eventually, it got thrown out. I'm sure, but I had it
Oh,
for a long time.
I don't know, Dana. It might be like. trying to find a needle in a haystack. With
It could be.
I'd love to know. Like I like getting a visual image
Mm,
of stuff like that because I love those old masks, all that Don Post stuff, and
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I think probably way back then that mask was probably under $10, but if you got something like that now, Lord knows what it would have
Yeah,
cost or what it would.
inflation.
Yeah. I'm sure I talked my parents into getting it for me because I didn't have any money at that time. I probably said, "Please, can I have this cool mask?" But I wish we had had, I sometimes wish we had had cell phones back then so we could have snapped pictures of things like that. And even if the mask got destroyed, we'd still have a
How
picture.
many people in here grew up buying the little disposable cameras that you would have to take a picture and then you had to wind on the back of it, and then and you wouldn't know what those pictures looked like until you
You
went and
just
got them
send it
developed.
off. Yeah. I remember the days too where this is kind of even worse than the disposable cameras. My mom had a camera where she would take the pictures, take
Mm-hmm.
the film out of it when you've used a roll of film,
Oh, and
drop
hold
it
it up
in
to
the
the light.
envelope, drop it in an envelope, send it off, and have to wait. I don't know how many weeks we had to wait to get our pictures back.
Well,
But
see, that's something my mom did, though, because this is what I thought you were going to say. But like my mom
oh, hold them up to the
would
light.
take it and like, but by doing that, she was exposing the film.
Yeah, she was. Yeah,
And so she would look at them to see what she could see what the picture would look like up in the light or something, and then she would like seal it back up and then take it off to get it developed.
yeah,
But like sometimes she would bring when she get them developed, some of the pictures that she was like the film she was holding up,
yeah,
it would have like a burnt like
yeah,
part of the image on there to where that film was exposed, and it took she did that several different times, and it didn't I was a little kid, so I didn't know any better. I didn't know. I thought my mom was doing something. She knew better than me. She knew what she was doing. But my brother, who's 10 years older than me, he finally, I think he was the one that mentioned it to her, and he was like, "Mom, you can't be taking that film out and exposing that to light."
right.
They said that's what's destroying the pictures.
That's why when you see movies where they're developing film, they have to do it in a dark room because if somebody opens the door and exposes that film to light, you just destroyed pictures. So, um, Batman says, I had the mask that if you squeeze a plastic heart, the mask will bleed. I remember those. I don't know if I ever had one, but I do remember those masks.
Um,
TJ says that's why those old pictures are all washed out. Too many people holding negatives up to the light.
yeah,
Probably so,
yeah, probably
TJ.
so.
Um, so anyway, that my first experience with Sleepaway Camp was actually the sequels. But my aunt Sandy, who loved horror movies as much as I did, and who I went to a lot of horror movies with, watched a lot of horror movies with at her house. She told me about the original Sleepaway Camp. She said, Dana, you for some reason she had watched it and I didn't watch it with her. And she said, you got to watch the original Sleepaway Camp because she was telling me about the cook, Artie, the camp cook, getting boiled in the water, and like she was telling me about the blisters popping up on his face and stuff like that. Sorry for anybody that hadn't seen this movie, but heck, it's 1983. People, come on,
Yeah, and
we
I
got
know
to look at the
we talked
program.
about that before, but like, and because I mentioned that was um my favorite like kill in the original Sleepaway Camp, even though it's not really a kill. I mean, because he doesn't die on
We don't
camera.
sing,
But
yeah,
I was always of the belief that well, he could have died on the way to the hospital or when they got him to the hospital or something. We just didn't see him die on screen.
right.
But as far, I guess I should use a better terminology and just say my favorite attack my favorite attack in the film is on that cook because
Mm.
he was a guy that deserved it because he was a pervert.
Yes, he
He was,
was.
he was trying to fool with these kids and stuff. So he had it coming, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely deserved, all the blistery skin he got from that hot water, and, I think that was my favorite, as Chris said, attack in the film, but there are a lot of, I think these are pretty original kills for 1983 because
Mhm.
you have a guy getting not only drowned in this, but when his body is found, a snake comes out of his mouth. How many times do you
Yes.
see that in a movie?
And typically, I hate anything dealing with snakes, even if it's on film. But that was, you know, super creative to me, and something at that time I had not seen anything like that happen in a horror film before. Because like I said, I was about 12 or 13 years old when I watched this for the first time. So yeah, that was really cool. I like that.
So I want to talk about another actual kill because we're pretty daggone sure that Judy dies from this, but
Oh
I don't think there's
yeah,
any coming back from this, and Chris knows what I'm talking about. So I would say this is probably if we call the what happened to Artie the cook, if we call
yeah,
that an attack, if I want to talk about my favorite surefire kill in this movie, it's
yeah.
the Judy death with the dang curling iron because how creative can you
Yeah,
get?
I would go with that too if I had to choose a surefire kill from the film. That's it. And I think that's probably the most popular one too because even Karen Fields that played Judy,
Mm.
she brings like a whole like box of curling irons with her to conventions and signs those for people.
Besides the curling irons, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the probably the most talked about at least death scene
You
or
know, if
death.
I ever met her, I would have to buy one of those damn curling irons and get her. Steve
Yeah,
would think I was
yeah,
crazy.
she stocks up on them apparently, and because like I remember watching her Instagram video about it, and
Uh,
about when they were coming to Scarefest last year, and she was promoting that. She's like, "I got my box of curling irons over here, ready to sign for everybody." And I was like, "Wow, she's bringing curling irons to sign. That's crazy."
uh, yes, Batman. Batman says my fave was Judy getting the hair straightener. He says it's inventive. It is inventive. I mean, and I can honestly say I have not seen another kill like that one in any other horror movie. Chris, have you? Is that the only time you've seen a death in that way with a curling iron?
Uh, that I can remember. Yeah, I mean that's the only only one I can think of.
I mean, basically, Judy is violated with a curling iron.
But that's that was the specialness, I guess you could say, of 80s horror. Because there was like a couple different horror films coming out like every weekend back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and a ton of them were slashers. And I think that's something they were always trying to up their game on, is the inventiveness of the kills, like what hasn't been done before, like what can we do that the Friday the 13th films have never done, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Halloween, because at the time Sleepaway Camp came out, Nightmare on Elm Street didn't exist yet.
Right.
It didn't come out till '84, the next year. So, um, even after that, like there was after the Nightmare films came out, like as you were talking earlier about the cover for Sleepaway Camp 2, that was obviously, something else that the Sleepaway Camp series seemed that they had to compete with.
Yeah.
And they're kind of throwing that out there, like, like Angela's better than Freddie and Jason. Here, look, she's got Freddie's glove. She's got Jason's mask. So she must
Yeah.
be a
Where'd she
total
get those? Did
badass.
she steal them? Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the many things I love about 80s horror.
And that was really the golden age of the slasher, definitely, was the 80s. Um, and, you know, to take a page from Dead Pitt's book and use one of their phrases, the the 80s pretty much blew its load with slashers because there were so many of them that came out during that time period. Now, I'm not saying that after the 80s we didn't have some great slashers, but I think that the ones that, at least for me, that stick out in my mind, the ones that I keep returning to,
Mm.
the majority of those come from the 80s. Now, Chris, do you feel that way or?
Yeah. Now, I think the way I take that when they say that they use that phrase, um, is that there was so much coming out during the 80s. I mean, that was majority of like the big slasher movies that we all know and love came out during those, that whole decade. And, you know, at that point, by the time '90s rolled around, pretty much all been done. What, as far as like ideas, so they were like, you know, it wasn't until really '96 when Scream came out that they were kind of coming out with some newer ideas, and because they were just kind of, with Scream they were focusing on like the genre within the movie,
Right.
as like, the rules of these movies and all that, with like, Randy, the character of Randy, how he was like, obsessed with horror films and just films in general. And then he would talk about, the rules of staying alive and the formulas of how these horror films work. And that was, the whole premise of that original Scream was like, because the killer or killers in this case, were, just obsessed with horror films,
Uh,
and also they were just crazy because of other personal issues and stuff going on too. With if you've seen Scream, you know what I'm talking about. I don't. There might be some people in here that's never seen Scream, but I don't. If you haven't, then you need to change that.
yeah, exactly. I agree with that because I've said this before about Scream, that and a lot of other people have said this too. Horror as a whole was pretty much dead in the water when Scream came out.
Yeah.
It was in a coma state, and Scream. I have to credit Scream for bringing horror back to life, essentially.
Yeah, and there was horror films coming out before Scream in the '90s that were really good and still hold up to this day. Um, but it was nothing that was really grabbing people's attention
Right.
until Scream came around. And Wes Craven also was already been a huge established name in film at that point. So, I think that brought a lot of older fans back as well because you know Wes Wes Craven's most famous film probably is the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think that was before that there have been some people that was probably familiar with his earlier work before that, like Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left. And when he came out with the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I think that's what kind of they saw how special that film was. They knew that this Freddy character was going to be a new established name in the horror scene. So even though Wes Craven wasn't affiliated with a lot of the other Nightmare on Elm Streets, it kept people's attention for so long because of that original film.
Mhm.
And the same can be said about when the original Scream came out. Because once he brought out Scream, all people's eyes, not just horror fans, but a lot of casual fans, casual moviegoers, eyes were on Scream and like, oh, what can we get more of this? And they did try to kind of tempt in a sense with I Know What You Did Last Summer and some other stuff that was coming out around that same time. But yeah, it really did in the 90s. Not to go off, I'll talk about the Scream,
Oh, no, that's fine.
but it's really what brought people's eyes back onto the genre and helped save it, basically, in my opinion.
Yeah. I want to bring TJ's comment up here because I got something. I always have something to say about something. But TJ says I also think the slashers kind of ruined storylines because it was all about the kills for a while and not characters and plot. Okay, here's my take on it, TJ, and you can agree to disagree with me on this. When I personally watch a slasher, I'm not caring about storylines. I'm not caring about plots. I'm not caring if it makes sense or not.
Mhm.
I am watching it entertainment,
for
purely
for the
for
fun of it. Just
entertainment.
you're
Yeah,
just
the
looking for
fun.
fun, the creativeness of it, because and let's be honest, I mean that's why most people love slasher movies that do love slasher movies. That is because they want to see what's different than this other slasher film they've watched. Like like they had this Friday the 13th movie had some really cool kills by Jason, and
Mhm.
then like let's see how those compare up in this random slasher film, and I think that's what a lot of people will be kind of into the story and some of it and kind of be interested in what's going on with the story. But there should be a story, there should be a plot, that kind of ties everything together. But I'm just like I said, I'm just being honest. Most people that watch slasher films are going to be like, "Well, is there any cool kills in it?" Uh,
Exactly. Is there
that's
any cool gore in it?
one of the first thing when you're telling somebody about a slasher film, and that other person you're talking to has never seen that. That's one of the first questions every time. Like,
Yeah.
is there any cool kills that stand out in it? At least that's one of my questions. Maybe I'm just being biased, but because
No,
slasher
I
films are
mean,
my favorite
I asked the
subgenre.
same thing. Yeah. In fact, I'm not going to go into great detail about the movie that Steve and I just saw this past weekend, In a Violent Nature. Um, but I had a lot of fun with that film, folks, because some things may have been like a really slow burn and might bore people. However, the kills in this thing, I was like, whoa, that's like taking me back to a time period that I thought was a lost art form, and having those creative kills and having those creative kills happen to the most annoying characters on the planet. I was like, I am loving this. And that's why I had a lot of fun within a violent nature. And the fact that it was a normal length. I didn't go in there and it was 3 hours or 3.5 hours. And I'm not trying to put the Terrifier films down. I'm making a point here. This was about an hour and 34 minutes, maybe. It was normal length, which for a slasher movie, and I consider this a slasher, that's all it needs to be, folks. In
Yeah,
my opinion, that's as long as the thing needs to be.
but the Terrifier movie, you can put them down all you want in front of me, Dana. I don't care. I like those
Well,
movies.
well, I like them to an extent, but again, me and Steve are some of the two biggest horror fans that you could ever meet. And when we finished Terrifier 2, we were like, and I couldn't believe I was saying that. We both looked at each other and we said the same exact thing at almost the same exact time. That was overkill. And I
Yeah,
never thought I would hear myself say those words.
and I think that's why they don't appeal to me because while I'm a huge fan of that type of stuff, I grew up, most and I try to not be biased towards like the 80s stuff and I like a lot of 90s stuff and everything and a lot the more modern stuff I'm not crazy about.
Mhm.
But I do give stuff a chance.
Right.
and I'm a big gore hound. I like a lot of gore. I love because I grew up watching Lucio Fulci and
Yeah.
Tom Savini's effects work and all the stuff he worked on, and I love that stuff. But I think what killed it with me for the Terrifier was that they were. It felt like they were trying too hard. That they were going way over the top because the filmmakers, Damien Leone, I think is his name. He
Mhm.
just he wanted that attention because he knew that was. It's like that film, which I know about it, but I refuse to watch it. A Serbian film. The stuff that the content within that film, at least from what I've read, like I said, I've never seen the film and I don't plan to ever watch it. But I think a lot of that's done because it's going to get people's eyes on it. But I think it's get people's eyes on that in the wrong way. But
Mhm.
that's just my opinion, and that doesn't mean it's fact or anything, of course. But that's just how I feel. I feel like you know, if you're putting stuff in there like it's over the top
Uh,
just to get attention and eyes on your film, then I feel like you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
mhm. I think, and people can disagree with me on this. In fact, I welcome people to disagree with me on stuff because it gives me something to talk about. But the so-called gore films back in the 80s, let's say like Fulci in his prime, with City of the Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell,
Mhm.
the Argento stuff. I especially the Argento stuff. I look at Argento stuff like artwork, very morbid artwork, but the artwork that is so morbidly beautiful you can't turn away from.
Yeah, it's like what's that one guy's name that used he did all like the old like barbarian type artwork. Oh my god, I know his name. But
Oh,
he did like a lot of the covers for like the Conan, the
mm,
Barbarian magazines, and a lot of that artwork from like you're talking about like Gates of Hell and stuff like that. Like it reminded me of the same style of like kind of like oil painting type stuff.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And Fulci, the thing about early Fulci stuff, some of his later stuff was uneven, but earlier Fulci stuff, like City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery, The Beyond, all of that stuff was just fun. It was zombies and stuff. It
Yeah,
was zombies ripping people's brains out and stuff like that. It was meant to be fun, I think. But I don't think the Terrifier movies are meant to be fun. The Terrifier movies are very mean-spirited films. Every
yeah,
single
it's
one of them is mean-spirited.
it's to me there's a lot of stuff in those films that's cringy. If I can use a new age term.
Yeah.
It's very cringy to me. Like, it's because there can be stuff like for example, in sleep, because since we're talking about sleepaway camp,
Mhm.
or we're trying to at least,
Oh, that's
uh,
okay. We can talk about other stuff too.
but like we were talking about the kill with Judy, like we don't see it we just see the shadow
It's
of it.
just shadows, but that's effective enough in my
Right,
opinion.
and the shadow of that and that's what makes that fun and to laugh at. There was really no kills in the Terrifier movie for me that I could like sit and laugh at.
I
Like,
was not
oh, that's
laughing,
fun. They put that in
but
there.
but when I went to see In a Violent Nature, I was laughing. People probably thought I was crazy in the movie theater, but when somebody got killed, I was like, "Oh my gosh,"
And I really do want to see that.
Mm. I think you would like it, Chris. I'd be surprised if you didn't like it.
I like the concept of what they're going with. I guess it's like the perspective of the killer. And I always
Yeah,
like that
pretty
because
much.
it's like that through the whole film too. Is that am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
See, and I always enjoy that when you see that in like film, like slasher films from the 80s stuff. Like you see, from the perspective of the killer a lot in Sleepaway Camp, and just a lot of different slasher films like that. And but it's only like kind of here and there. There. I don't. I think this may be the first time where the entire film is from the perspective of the killer. If I may be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of the movie is from we're actually it's like we're what did Steve say it was like? It was like these video games that we play where you're kind of
Oh.
controlling like the Friday the 13th game. That's I think that's what he said
Or
it
like a
was.
like a first person shooter type game, like
But
where
we
you
actually see the killer. It's not like we're the
okay. So
killer. It's like we're seeing this character. Like he walks through the woods for a long ass
oh, so
time.
you see that, so it's more like a third person type view.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So that may be what people might say, "Oh God, this is boring," because we're actually following him. It's almost like the viewer is following this killer with a
Right.
camera, and he's watching people through the bushes and different things like that. But I just found it interesting. I liked the way it was filmed. I didn't like the characters, most of them, and was glad when they got killed off. But see, to me, that's I at least had one person I could kinda get behind. One something that I don't like is when I can't find any character to support in the movie, when they're all just so reprehensible that I just can't find anybody that I even remotely like. And so you had a character she was a little whiny and stuff like that, but I liked her a lot better than the other people.
Mhm.
So, um,
No.
I I really, really enjoyed this take on it, and I hope it's the beginning of them making more movies
Yeah,
like
I
this.
really want to see it. I'm really interested. I'll get around to it here eventually. But TJ, thank you. Yeah, that's Frank Frazetta is the artist that I was trying to think of. Um, yeah, he did a lot of that, like Barbarian stuff with like Conan the Barbarian. He's done a lot of horror stuff too. But like that old whole oil painting style that he would do is, I'm reminded by that of like a lot of like the zombie covers. I'd see like Gates of Hell and Hell of the Living Dead and stuff like that.
Yeah, Gates of Hell is always one that, stands out in my mind a lot. In fact, I don't think y'all help me remember because my brain's getting kind of fuzzy. Remember, I turned 48 tomorrow, so my brain is not too good. But I if I haven't done a watch along for City of Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell, I would love to do that upcoming, and I can't remember if I have or not. Um,
Um, but
John says he would definitely put over Abigail as far as new movies go. It's really solid.
I'm kind of interested in Abigail, but also I feel like, and it ain't just the Abigail trailer, but it's a lot of movie trailers that give way too much away of the film nowadays. That's just my opinion. I honestly I will watch movie trailers nowadays for some stuff if I'm like super interested. Like I've watched that Beetlejuice 2 trailer a few times.
Mhm.
Um, but a lot of stuff that isn't really tied to anything, if it's not like a sequel to something or anything, I try to avoid those types of trailers. Like this movie that Dana and Steve just went and watched. I I have not watched the trailer for. I know about it, but that's all I want to know. Before I did. because that's why I go into stuff blindly because that's how I feel like I appreciated movies more growing up doing that way because I would go to the video store, I'd rent a movie, I would know nothing about the movie, I didn't have the internet, I couldn't go watch a trailer for this movie somewhere, or I would just get it and just like kind of look at the back, see what it's about, see a couple pictures that was like from the movie, not knowing any context of that, and go and just see if I liked it or not. And that's what I try to do nowadays because, you know, Abigail, that was one that I watched the trailer for. And after I watched it, I wish that I hadn't seen the trailer because I was like, this is pretty much, a lot of the movie, I would think,
Right.
it doesn't really leave any kind of mystery to it.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just how I do things. So
And TJ says if you want to be surprised, don't watch any trailers. He said that was smart on your part.
I
Not
mean,
to-
that's just it's like I said. I just feel like I appreciate films more the less I know about them going in.
And John says he has high expectations for Maxine and Long Legs. That's probably my most anticipated. Now I'm really looking forward to Maxine. I can't, I I loved X. I loved Pearl. So I'm definitely looking forward to Maxine.
You know, I have not watched those yet, but I'm going to watch them here very soon because I'm very intrigued with this actress that they got for My Goth,
Mm-hmm.
because I've never seen her in anything. All I've seen is photos of her online and people on like horror sites and stuff talking about her. And I don't know if it's just me, but she reminds me of a young Shelley Duvall. Her look, at
Right.
least. Not her like I'm not like because I can't really compare her like acting skills because like I said I've not watched anything with her in it yet. But just the way she looks to me, she reminds me of a young Shelley Duvall.
She
And
has a
I
very unique look.
and that's what because I love Shelley Duvall, so that's why I'm so interested in wanting to watch those films. And I've heard a lot of good things about them too. I think Jenna Ortega is in the movie X, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So she's a pretty
Yeah,
big deal nowadays too.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm gonna watch them soon. I guess I'll let everybody know at some point what I thought about them.
Yeah, I'd love to, have you on here to talk about what you thought about them after you watch them. Um, so we've talked a little bit about Sleepaway Camp and about the kills in it and stuff like that. Now, let's go to the dark side, shall we? And then let's talk about Return to Sleepaway Camp. Let's see if we can piece together what in the hell went wrong with this movie because both Sleepaway Camp and Return to Sleepaway Camp were both directed by Robert Hiltzik. And he did an amazing job, in my opinion, with Sleepaway Camp. A lot of the same actors and actresses returned for Return to Sleepaway
I
Camp.
know of at least three of them. If there's more than that, I can't remember. Like I said, it's
I've seen it one time, and
yeah. I saw it one time, and like I've said before on here, Dana, I'm a lot of movies like that. I'm one and done.
one
I
and
don't
done.
really
Yeah,
have no desire to watch them again at any point. This
I
Return to Sleepaway Camp is one of those movies that I don't think really anybody considers it a part of the franchise. I mean, it is, but you know what I mean, like because it completely like disregards the stories from Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, because it's a direct sequel,
mhm.
um, to the original film, and so it doesn't make any kind of mention or anything of the events of Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3.
You want to talk about not making sense, not having logic, not even one little tiny piece of logic. You know,
Yeah,
in name only, I feel like is what this is. And if I'm remembering correctly, perhaps Robert Hiltzik forgot how to make a movie in the many years since he made Sleepaway Camp, because I want to say that maybe Robert Hiltzik was a realtor. He became a realtor. He became something other than a filmmaker sometime after Sleepaway Camp was made. And then, there was a resurgence of popularity with Sleepaway Camp, the original Sleepaway Camp, and its sequels, and that was due to Jeff Hayes. And Jeff Hayes is the webmaster for sleepawaycampfilms.com. And I think that website is still up.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll be right back, Dana.
oh,
Sorry.
okay, that's fine. So Jeff Hayes was responsible for the resurgence and ultimately the popularity of Sleepaway Camp, because Sleepaway Camp there for a while became a little bit of a lost film. Nobody talked about it or didn't talk about it much. So Jeff Hayes started contacting the people that were in the original Sleepaway Camp and got them at a Fangoria convention, one of the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, and they got Felissa Rose and Jonathan Tiersten and the actress that played Aunt Martha. They got the actor who played Ronnie, the guy that was working out all the time in the film and was one of the head counselors. So they got a lot of those people, and things just exploded in the world of Sleepaway Camp after that. TJ, you said the antagonist is also a protagonist in return, kinda. I agree with that. Batman, I agree. Probably the majority of what was wrong with it was too much damn time had passed. Um, but I honestly, I was excited when I heard about Return to Sleepaway Camp. And, I've learned over time to not get too excited over things, especially if it's been a long time since the original, right? But in this case, I was excited. And I think I bought this on DVD way back when. But as you can tell, I didn't care enough to dig this movie out of my DVD grouping or DVD pile to bring it back here. Um, yeah, your ass stinks so bad. That's right, John. This does have some very atrocious dialogue in it as well. Um, so uh, probably when Chris gets back, I'm going to have to go away because I've been, drinking too much of this. Um, John, you may be right on that. That wasn't it filmed, then shelved for years, and then released. That is a distinct possibility, and that might be another problem with it. That too much time had passed. Um, in addition to Return to Sleepaway Camp, though, does anybody remember when the box sets came out and they got in trouble with the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, and had to change those boxes? I have the set that actually has the Red Cross on it. But does anybody remember when those were first released? There was a extra disc, um, Sleepaway Camp for the Survivor. That was awful too. And that wasn't even, I don't think that was a full length thing. They had just filmed a few scenes. Um, TJ, you say Mutilator 2. That director also forgot how to make a movie. That was Mr. Buddy Cooper. And I was so turned off by Dark Knight of the Scarecrow 2 that I haven't even tried to watch Mutilator 2 yet. I'm scared to. Um, and Dark Knight of the Scarecrow 2, I believe, was on YouTube. I think that's where I saw that. Um, but I must say, if you've never seen Return to Sleepaway Camp, you're not missing anything at all. You could watch Sleepaway Camp and Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, and you would be fine for the rest of your life, in my opinion. Um, I was just really, really turned off by Return to Sleepaway Camp, um, because I just was like, what am I watching? It was like a bunch of super annoying people. And I think the antagonist, protagonist person, like this kid who he's obviously um not a nice kid at all. It's not like you have this shy kid who's getting picked on. He treats everybody like crap. So of course they're going to be worse on him than just somebody that just kind of sits in a corner and doesn't say anything. Um, so TJ, you can't watch that one online. Okay, well I guess that's why I haven't seen it anywhere. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. Oh, um, but yeah, Return to Sleepaway Camp was a complete disappointment for me. Was nothing at all like the original. The original Sleepaway Camp was fun. As me and Chris said earlier, it had a lot of great and unique kills in it, or attacks in the case of the cook. Um, and it did have you did like Angela. You felt sorry for Angela. This kid in Return to Sleepaway Camp, no, I didn't feel sorry for him, because he was a pain in the ass. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That Pizzow has a cameo in Mutilator too. Even if it was an awful movie, I would have loved to had a part, even a background character that doesn't even have any lines. Ah, yeah. Filmed in 2003 and released in 2008. Yeah, that is a huge, huge gap, John. And I would be willing to bet that that's a really big part of the problem. Um, and the fact that Robert Hiltzik had not made any films in years. Um, yeah, see, that's the key, TJ. We all need to make our own movies and then we can put ourselves in there. Uh, Batman, you say I only got it because of Isaac Hayes and Vincent Pastore, or Big Pussy from The Sopranos was in it. Yeah, but if you want to watch a better film with Vincent Pastore in it, um, watch Black Roses. Lot better movie, and one of those rock horror movies. And he definitely plays an interesting part in it as one of the kids' dads. So don't subject yourself to too much Return to Sleepaway Camp for that. Um, but so I guess I'll instead of going on and talking more about that, I'll get some more of Chris's thoughts when he comes back. But basically, anything y'all want to talk about in his absence, we can talk about. Just as long as we keep it clean, we can do that. So if there's anything anybody wants to ask me or anything, or ask about upcoming stuff, or Chris,
Sorry, Dana, I'm back.
that's okay.
That was just my neighbor Lou again. We've been Candace told me she's just then. She said she had been telling you about this, and she don't care if anybody else knows. But
Mhm.
we just been having some issues with our car lately. It's right now. It's currently sitting in the parking lot over at our local Walmart right now, because Candace and her mom had went to Walmart, and when they came back to get into the car, she stuck the key in the ignition and it just kind of locked up. And we've tried every which way in the world to figure out what's going on while that's locked in there. And we've looked stuff up on YouTube and everything to try to figure out tips and tricks on that. So I just mentioned it to my neighbor Lou after I got off work today, because I know he does like detailing on cars and stuff like that. But I just figured he might know something about it. So he actually, he asked for my permission first and everything. He said, if I go over there, I look at it, is it okay? I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Because I trust him and everything. But so he said he went over there and looked at it earlier. And then he said, well, the battery's dead. I said, well, no, the battery's not dead. It's just the battery's unhooked. He's oh, I didn't know that. I wish I'd known that. So, and that was what he came and talked to me about earlier when I had to leave to go talk to him earlier here on the stream. And then he just came back again because he apparently went up there again with his friend and they looked at it. And so it's looking like our key switch might have to be completely replaced now in it.
Oh boy.
Because as he said, and which me and Candace didn't even, well, Candace might realized it, but I didn't, is that he said that key that we have, because we bought the car used, and the key that we that we got with it is not the original key. And it's just some kind of makeshift key, I guess, that dealership had made for it. And that was the only key that the dealership gave us. And we never got another backup key or anything, created for it. And even if, in this case, it really doesn't matter because like the key is like locked into place in the key switch. But yeah, that's what that's all about. Sorry about that, Dana.
Oh, no problem. Actually, what I'm gonna have to do is run to the restroom. So I'm gonna leave and take myself out of the stream temporarily and let Chris entertain y'all. Y'all can talk about Return to Sleepaway Camp, or you can just go back and forth talking about other stuff. But y'all keep it clean if you ask Chris any questions. I don't want anybody getting embarrassed here. So I will be right back.
So let me just see what everybody's talking about in chat while I was gone. Let's see. I have no idea what some of these topics you guys are, how these came up. Like you're talking about Mutilator 2 and was like Malevolence, and I'll have to watch the stream back to see what you guys were talking about. But Return to Sleepaway Camp. So here's the thing. So when the original Sleepaway Camp came out, it had a budget of, it was something under 400 grand. And the budget for Return to Sleepaway Camp was $4 million. Now, I do realize, that those movies there was a huge gap between them. One came out in 1983, and then the other wasn't released direct to video until 2008. Although I think I read somewhere once that the film was done in like 2004, 2005 or something like that. But they had, with all the issues with the CG stuff in the film, it had to be reworked, and just a lot of stuff had to be reworked in order for it to be released. But still, like $4 million, even though there is a, like, what was it, 25-year gap there between those films, that's still a huge difference between a little under 400 grand compared to $4 million. And TJ says 4 million for what? Bad mustaches? Yeah, for real, man. Like, and if you look at the comparison between the beginnings of both of those films. You look at the beginning of the backstory for Angela and Peter, and their father and his lover, on that boating trip in the original Sleepaway Camp, and it's given you, a detailed and elaborate backstory of what's going on with Angela's character. Compare that to the beginning of Return to Sleepaway Camp, where they're lighting farts, and just there's really no creativity to that, or anything within as far as now. I will say I've heard some people say that the kills in Return to Sleepaway Camp were not inventive. I kind of disagree with that. While they were goofy, but sometimes goofy's okay with me. I don't feel that they lacked any kind of creativity. I felt like the fishing line around the guy's penis and being ripped off by the Jeep was pretty inventive, in my opinion. But just a lot of that shit in Return to Sleepaway Camp was unnecessary. And I can see as a why Felissa Rose doesn't really talk about that movie, because uh, the whole reveal at the end where she was like Sheriff Jerry or whatever his name was.
That was the awfulest thing.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And it pissed me off really, because it was like completely disregarding the Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, which I guess you could just look at it in, its own universe type thing. It's like a multiverse type deal with like the Halloween films, like the new ones, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. Those are all just, linked to the original Halloween. There's all these sequels that happened after the original Halloween don't exist in that universe.
Right.
So, I mean, you can look at it like that. It's just in this separate universe, just the original Sleepaway Camp and Return to Sleepaway Camp exist. But I don't acknowledge that universe. And if I'm being honest, I don't acknowledge it because I have no desire to watch Return to Sleepaway Camp again. The only one that I will acknowledge is Sleepaway Camp, and then Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. Now, I can't remember, I mentioned someone mentioned earlier that it might have been Mayer, that they did not care for Pamela Springsteen. Let me tell you, from the very beginning that I have been coming to conventions, that woman has always been on my request list.
Oh yeah.
I have asked every promoter that I know to get that woman for a show, and she just has no interest. She's got her photography business going, you know, and I guess she's just not interested in the genre anymore.
Yeah.
But I love her. She is absolutely my favorite rendition of Angela. I know a lot of people be like, oh, what? Because Felissa Rose is so great. And I love Felissa. I mean, she's awesome. I love her. But as far as the character itself and knowing the personality of the character, it's established well, at the end. I mean, because you're, that's the whole like twist of the original film, is like, we're not expecting Angela to be the killer. We're not expecting her. She's just sweet, shy, quiet girl who's having trouble with bullies and stuff at the camp. And and we're not expecting her, to be the killer. We're expecting her to possibly be the one that stops the killer in the end.
And we're also not expecting, sorry if you haven't seen Sleepaway Camp, but we're not expecting that gender switch That's all I'm gonna say about it. It's a gender
And
switch.
then, like, as it goes more into that, because it plays into the fun of her character in Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, especially the second one. The second one is probably my favorite out of the whole series.
I love that.
And I'm a happy camper, that whole song she does and everything. And they're always making fun of her. And like the kills are super fun and creative in Sleepaway Camp 2 and in 3 as well. But yeah, I love Pamela Springsteen. I think she did that perfectly. I think, and I don't know of outside of the Sleepaway Camp films, I don't know of her doing anything else. I mean, she
Uh,
probably did, but I'm not familiar with anything
she
else.
was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She played Dina Phillips, one of the
She was
cheerleaders.
in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, go back and watch that, Chris. Um,
Damn, I've seen that movie
her
plenty of times.
um she is definitely she's Dina. She's the one that Damone tries to sell the Cheap Trick tickets to.
Oh my gosh, it is. I never realized that. Let me tell you, because I've seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High a lot, and a lot of those times had to do with the Phoebe Cates pool scene. I'll just be honest.
Well, yeah, I think that's on every guy's radar.
Um, and yeah, that's a whole nother thing I get into. But I didn't realize that, and you're right, because I never thought about that being her. But yeah,
And
but
the story behind the scenes about that I think it's Amy Heckerling and Cameron Crowe talk about it. That especially Amy Heckerling says when they were on the set, Sean Penn, who plays Spicoli, was in love with Pamela Springsteen. And he didn't want anybody bad or saying anything bad about Pamela Springsteen on the set. He
hey,
was
I
like,
love her. I mean, I love her in both Sleepaway Camp movies she was a part of. And like I said, from the very beginning, I started going to conventions. I've always requested. I still talk to Nathan Hanneman from Horror Hound about it, like consistently. I'm like, is there any chance still that we might be able to get Pamela Springsteen? And he says that he has talked to Sean Clark. He's talked to every like agent he knows, and every agent that's reputable in the horror community. Um, and on that convention circuit scene has tried apparently.
mm-hmm.
And there's nobody out there that has convinced her yet to do it. Some people, that's just not their thing. There's a lot of it, but I have seen crazier things happen.
Yeah, we might wake up tomorrow and somebody will say, we got Pamela Springsteen.
I'd lose my mind, Dana. I would lose my mind if they got her for a show, and if it was somewhere out west, I would probably try to go to it. Just for her, and because I never thought Howie Mandel would start doing conventions. Now he's doing conventions. That guy's a germaphobe, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how is he going to like survive these shows? Because there's a lot, and I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody, Dana, but there's a lot of people that has bad hygiene that goes to these shows.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that too, Chris.
And I'm not trying that. I don't want that to sound mean, but it's just the truth,
It's the
people.
truth,
I mean,
though.
come on. I mean, like if you're going to these shows, it's tip to try to like do better for yourself too.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I passed by, because you get bottlenecked at some points in times at these conventions. And I've smelled odors before that make me want to just yell out, can you use some deodorant? Use some soap. But I don't want to be mean. But that's what you want to say.
Yeah, and TJ says Pamela's like Jamie Gertz. They just moved on with their lives. Gertz is a billionaire and doesn't need to call the yeah, because she like is one of the co-owners of like one of those big NBA teams, I think, or some kind of sports team. Like her and her husband own, and so yeah, she's she doesn't have to ever, I don't think, worry about having to attend conventions and stuff. Which,
Mm,
the same could be probably said about Pamela Springsteen. I don't know how successful her photography business is, but I'm sure it's mildly, successful because, she's also Bruce Springsteen's sister, and I
yep.
think
And
they,
that's what Russell asked. Is she related to Bruce? Yes.
yeah, that's Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteen's sister, and that may be another reason is why, because she does have a lot of success with her business because of her name. I think that happens with a lot of people that are, have a hereditary from or some kind of relation to some super famous person. Not saying she wasn't super famous, but if I'm being honest, she's not a big a name as her brother,
Right.
Bruce Springsteen. But I think that can bring a lot of people to her business though because that's her brother. Um, but yeah, I'm like I said, I've seen crazier things happen as far as conventions stuff goes. So I'm not giving up completely on ever seeing her at a show. It could happen, but I think it might have to take a lot to get her there.
Years ago, we wouldn't have thought we'd see Eric Freeman at conventions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
nobody
another
could find him. You know. Um, Candace says, "How you handle your personal hygiene is your own right, but when you're going to have to be shoulder to shoulder with others at these cons and in others' personal space, be considerate." Well, yeah, that point taken, Candace, and uh, we're not trying to be mean here, folks. It's just it doesn't take much to, like, you're in a hotel. A lot of people stay at these hotels where the convention's at. If you've already paid for a hotel room, jump in the shower, scrub your underarms with soap, go buy yourself some cheap deodorant and put it on. Just like Candace says, be considerate of the other people that have to be around you in these bottlenecked areas. Uh, but yeah, Chris is completely right on that. That stranger things have happened, and who knows, we may get to see Pamela Springsteen. I would probably lose my mind too.
um
But, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I seen John's comment. I wanted to comment on that. He said, "I'd love to hear Felicity talk about Return to Sleepaway Camp. That main guy in it kind of vanished, the picked on bully kid." And that's something I don't know. You may have talked about it while I was gone, Dan, but I know it's not something I mentioned. But is that kid that is picked on in Return to Sleepaway Camp? Do you remember what his nickname was in the movie, Dana?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. I think I try to forget so much about that movie that I blocked it out more.
Well, his nickname, and if there's any kids in the room with you right now, you
Get your
might
kids
want to cover
out.
their ears. Um, but the kid's name was Blowjob was his nickname because there's a part where he like falls into another like guy's crotch or
Oh
something
yeah,
in the
yeah.
movie, and then they call him that, and it's like this movie is so strange because what was so special about the original film was just like there was a lot of mystery hidden into it. The characters were just like you didn't know who to suspect to be the killer was, and then the ultimate thing about it was the twist at the end because there wasn't really anything else like that at the time. Uh,
Mhm.
and like I said earlier, a lot of the characters in the original film, while a lot of them were jerks, but they were memorable jerks, and there was always something going on in the film that would catch your interest. Not the same story with Return to Sleepaway Camp
Mm-mm.
because
And what I remember about the kid that was being bullied, he was an asshole.
Yeah,
And he
exactly.
was not
And
likable, and that turned me off
and
too.
there was really no characters in that. The only reason I wanted to watch it is because I knew the rest of the films, and that's what interested me in wanting to see this, because I knew that some people from the original film were returning. You
Mm,
know, Felissa Rose is in it, Jonathan Tiersten's in it, Paul D'Angelo's in it
yeah,
that played Ronnie, um, and that was like my main reason for wanting to watch that. And also because I like the other Sleepaway Camp films.
right.
Um, but this was just like, you know, I'm not one of those type of people that will, if you get one bad egg in a bunch, it's going to ruin everything for me. I
Right.
just, I, I just kind of, I do things my own way into where like from now on, when I watch these movies, I'm just going to be watching Sleepaway Camp and then Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, and that's it. I'm done after that.
Yeah.
That's where the series ends for me, is after part 3, because I have no plans to watch Return to Sleepaway Camp ever again. It's just because, like I said, I love that franchise so much. It's like the fan, like we talked about Phantasm,
Right.
Ravager. It's like it doesn't ruin the rest of the series for me. It just it does taint your feelings towards the series, because where it's considered canon as a part of that franchise, it does taint a little bit how you feel about the rest of the series in some kind of way. Not to where like, well, where you watch films like, oh well, yeah, I know Ravager's coming at the end of all this. No, it's not like that. It's just it's like the the last season of Roseanne.
Yeah.
Um, It's like, you got this great, fantastic show up until you get to the last season of that freaking
Exactly.
show. And at the end, you're like, what the fuck?
Um. Exactly. And there were a few episodes of, if I can talk about Roseanne for a second, there were a few episodes leading up to the last season that the whole Dan's mother being crazy and having to go to the insane asylum and Dan crying over it and stuff. Like that was never brought up early on in Roseanne land. His mom actually showed up for Thanksgiving. It was the lady off of Three's Company. She played Lana on Three's Company. If anybody remembers that,
And I know we've mentioned Roseanne several times on your stream, because like that's one of my favorite shows of all time. Um, but you know, and I didn't know this after we got back from the trip, Dana.
hmm
But when we went to Evansville, Indiana to see Judas Priest with Noah, um, so I found out after the fact we came back from Evansville that the Roseanne house is in Evansville, Indiana.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the actual the house that they show from the exterior of the house. Um, that is, yeah, that house is in Evansville, Indiana.
Wow, that's cool.
I was like, oh my God,
Yeah,
Candace, we were right there.
you could have seen it. Um, I agree, TJ. The last few years of Roseanne got super campy. It lost its reality image and topical stories. I definitely would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, but Candace, I wanted to bring this up before we definitely before we end this, that her and Noah are watching Ice Cream Man. Would you want to talk about a fun horror movie with Clint Howard? That's a fun
I
one.
love it. I love it. And David Naughton's in that too.
David Naughton, Olivia Hussey's in it.
Yeah. Yep. Did you ever think like, okay, there's this cover of Ice Cream Man, not the one that we all know is just Clint Howard, but there's like a DVD cover or something, and the little kid, the blonde headed kid in Ice Cream Man with wears the glasses. Um, did you ever think like he kind of looked like Macaulay Culkin
Come to think of it, yeah.
from My Girl, maybe. Because in My Girl, he wore glasses, right?
Yeah, definitely from the My Girl era. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I love that movie though. We met Clint Howard several years ago at a horror hound, and he was really cool. We talked about Andy Griffith's show a lot, and then that's actually what we bought from. He was selling um, 8x10s that were signed by Ron Howard.
Mm,
Um, and it was just a shot from the Andy Griffith show where Ron Howard playing Opie, and then Clint Howard was on there as a character named Leon.
yeah.
And so it's just a photo of them two, and Ron Howard had already pre-signed all these for him to bring to these conventions and stuff. So he just signed his name on there too, and we have it somewhere in there in one of our family rooms in the house, and I love that. But I don't know if you know anything about this, Dana. If you've heard anything about it, about the little beef between Clint Howard and Joe Bob. Um,
No, I guess I
you
have
don't
not.
know about that? Oh my gosh, it's so weird. So okay, so as you know, like in the last couple of years, like it was probably like a year or two ago, they had Clint. They were showing God, what was that movie they showed with him in it? Where like they pick on him, and he gets and he like pulls all these like dark forces and the oh my lord, what is that movie called? They showed it on Last Drive In.
You talking about Evil Speed?
Evil Speak, yes. So they were showing Evil Speak, and then at the end of that, they did like this tribute to Clint Howard where they had a song and everything.
Yeah, I remember that.
And,
Yeah.
and then, they even had Ron Howard come on there and make a little appearance in the part of that tribute.
Hmm.
Okay, so apparently that pissed Clint Howard off.
Really?
And yeah, and he like because Darcy has addressed this like on Twitter and stuff. I mean, they tried to talk to him and figure out why he was feeling that way, but he felt that they were making fun of him.
Wow.
They felt so it goes further than that. So apparently, if you're a fan of Joe Bob and you wear a Joe Bob shirt to go and meet Clint Howard, he will tell you off nowadays.
Oh boy, I'm glad I didn't have a Joe Bob shirt on when I met Clint Howard.
Yeah. So apparently, the first story I heard about was this one guy. He said he has a Joe Bob shirt on. He went to go talk about Clint Howard, and he said Clint Howard was basically like, "Fuck that guy, fuck all those people from the Last Drive-In," and he was being 100% serious. And he said he won't ever have anything to do with Joe Bob ever again. And he just felt like he was made a mockery of. And I thought that might have just been like one person. Maybe they're kind of exaggerating the story, but
Right.
no, like there was more and more of these stories coming in of the same type of experience with Clint Howard. If you had a Joe Bob shirt on, and I think that's like I don't know. It's so strange to me.
And
Like,
I don't know what year this was exactly, but Darcy at some point in time interviewed Clint Howard and like hung out with him for a long time. So I know
yeah.
that was prior to that, what the Evil Speak showing
Mhm. Yeah,
and all
she's addressed that plenty of times on Twitter and stuff like that, talking about how she absolutely adores Clint Howard and loves everything he's a part of. Um, I actually just watched a movie again earlier because it's one of my favorite Adam Sandler films, Little Nicky.
that.
He's in that, and he plays I guess he's like a drag queen character. He's only in it like little bits and pieces throughout the film. Maybe he may be in there like maybe less than a minute. His whole film time on there, but it's just a little funny part with Clint Howard, and
Mhm.
I I love his movies too. I think everybody that watches Joe Bob and The Last Drive-In
Mhm.
are pretty genuine when it talks to their interest in films, and they when they're showing, love and tribute towards a person, that they really mean that. Like they're it's not a joke or anything. It's not anything to make a mockery of them. I don't know. I think he might just have a lot of personal issues where he just felt like he was kind of like, you know, he didn't get a big of a career as he hoped he would be, as Ron Howard or even his dad Rance. I mean, because they made it pretty far in the industry, but in my opinion, Clint Howard did too. I mean, in his own way.
Yeah,
Uh,
he kind of made his own path.
I mean, because he definitely has a cult following amongst fans that go to these conventions and stuff. I mean, he's been in Evil Speak. He's been in Ice Cream Man. Outside of horror, he's in a ton of stuff. He was in his little like I said, Little Nicky. He's in that, and he was in Night Shift. He was the limo driver in Night Shift.
Yeah,
He,
Candace mentioned that one.
and he had when he was a kid, he was on the Andy Griffith Show, and he was in like a Star Trek episode, and as some little like alien creature, and just ton of stuff. And I think that all that stuff appeals to certain people out there. Me being one of them, I think you, Candace, whoever, everybody you're watching, I think has kind of the same opinion on Clint Howard. I think he's awesome, and it's just sad to find out that he feels like he's a joke. I hate that anybody would feel that way about themselves.
TJ says, I don't want to talk politics, but Clint is a crazy MAGA guy. I heard he's not playing with a full deck. So, I mean, maybe that goes back to what Chris said. Maybe he's got issues going on that we
Yeah,
don't even know about,
and Russell mentioned another one, the Wraith. Oh my God,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love the Wraith. I'm not a big Charlie Sheen fan anymore,
Mhm.
but that movie rules. I'm so, and it's got one of the most awesome soundtracks on it too, because it's got a really underrated Aussie song in it, "Secret Loser," uh,
Mhm.
and I think that was the first time I ever heard that song by Ozzy was in The Wraith, and yeah, such an awesome movie, man.
Um, I was gonna wasn't am I thinking of somebody else, or wasn't Clint Howard in Rock and Roll High School?
Yes, he was.
Okay. See, and I love Rock and Roll High School. I absolutely
Me
love that.
too. Oh, yeah, because I love the Ramones. I love PJ Souls. Yeah, it's a great movie.
If you've never seen Rock and Roll High School, come out from under your rock. I'm not trying to be offensive, and watch that
Oh,
movie.
and of course, it's a Roger Corman film too.
Yes, yes.
And to me, Roger Corman is probably the most important filmmaker in history.
He's got to be one of the top influential people.
Yeah, because look at who everybody he influenced to not just like to be a filmmaker, but actors like Jack Nicholson began with Roger Corman.
And I have
Uh,
great respect for somebody that kind of pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and got their career started pretty much all on their own, but he would give other people a chance. He would help these people out. And it didn't matter if you were a man or a woman. Definitely, you could say that Roger Corman was not a sexist person. He would give women
yeah,
these directing jobs.
he
I,
wasn't Lucio Fulci.
I have respect for Lucio Fulci, God rest his soul, but he didn't treat women in his films very well
No, he
at
did.
all.
I mean, and I know some people have kind of excused that as like just a directing technique to try to motivate them. I don't know. It's hard to say. It could be. It could be one of those Stanley Kubrick things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I got the vibe from Fulci. It's just he just wanted to. It was a mix of just him just wanting to do that to kind of intimidate women.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
think I could have worked on a film with him being the director. I would have been crying every day.
yeah, I think it's just maybe what it is, or he just wanted to, he wanted to feel like he could intimidate women to show his level of power. But who knows? Who really knows the full
Well,
story?
when I interviewed Giovanni, God rest his soul too, um, whenever I interviewed him for my fanzine, he talked like him and Fulci got along just great because I asked him about it. I said, there have been some people that said Fulci was a little rough on him, or a whole lot rough on him. And he basically said, he heard that too, but he never had a problem with Fulci. He always got along with him. Um,
Well, also you gotta look, and I hate to even mention this because it's kind of so backwards, but at that during that time, not just in film, but like, um, you know, women didn't really have a lot of equality with male actors or directors or anything like that. And the reason I bring that up is because I think of like Jackie Kong, who did Blood Diner.
mhm.
Because when that came out at that time, it was kind of unknown and unheard of for women to be directing films. Um, and when other studios and producers and stuff heard about Jackie Kong, they didn't even know that she was a woman
Yeah.
until they met her in person. And I think they were even kind of taken aback. But luckily times have changed, and we have a lot of great women filmmakers out there
Mhm.
these days. So, and one of them I do want to mention, and I'm glad we kind of talked about this because it's is Jill Six. I don't know if you've seen The Stylist yet, Dana, but that
I
movie
have not. I
that
have
movie
not watched
is
that
so
one.
good, so awesome. And like, I didn't see the first year I went to that convention in Knoxville, FrankenCon.
Mhm.
She was there as a guest, and the stylist had just been out for maybe a couple months, so I knew she was there. I'd heard of the movie and everything. I hadn't seen it yet. She was selling copies of the Blu. I think Arrow released it,
Mhm.
um, and I regret not going up to talk to her now because I watched the movie after that, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so good!" This might be one of the best horror films I've seen in the last 10 years. And
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to watch it now, Chris. If you giving it
yeah,
that
I
good.
highly recommend it to anybody that's a horror fan, because it's very different. It's very creative, and that's hard to do nowadays in horror. Is to kind of do something that nobody's done.
Right. Oh, I'll definitely. What that went on Shutter at one time, Chris?
It was. It may still be. I'm not sure. Um, But yeah, it's definitely, even if you have to go and buy it, it's worth it. It's
Mhm.
worth picking up.
Well, Steve might be able to get it for me if I don't find
I
it
hear you. I know what you're saying.
on. Don't y'all tell nobody now.
Don't tell
I don't want
nobody.
the feds showing up. You know.
Freeze, FBI! Just break in your door.
Me and Steve will both be going away for a long time, probably. If they seized Steve's hard drives
I
or
think it's pretty like it's something we just joke about, but like it's not super taboo hardly. I mean, I think that's something that's kind of openly talked about on YouTube and stuff a lot. Is like these
very much.
things like where you get the free show. Because I know that Chris C, the slasher dude, and Gorephobe, they do that from I think the website is called like Look to something
Is it
looking
is it
about a
a look to movie? Because Russell
yeah,
talks about that a lot.
that's it. That's it. Yeah, they use that sometimes when they do like watch alongs. When I know that Chris and the Agoraphobe guy does those watch alongs from that site. I know they at least did that with what was it? Something they did not long ago. I watched with them, but yeah, I mean, I do think that's a pretty openly talked about thing. So I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it's
just
gonna be
like
busting down our
minimal.
doors or something like that.
Next thing you know, the SWAT team will be busting in our windows or something.
Well,
We heard y'all had a lot of pirated movies
if
in.
they, if they talk about nowadays how they monitor like people's IP addresses and stuff, they find a lot of shit on my.
We'd all be going away for a long time, probably, if they did do that. Um, so I guess we'll try to tie this up with a nice, neat little bow. We've been here almost 2.5 hours.
Mhm.
Um, and we can probably, if Chris is willing to stay on a few more minutes with me, we'll.
Absolutely.
Do you have any final thoughts, Chris, that you'd like to bring up about either Sleepaway Camp or Return to Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah, sleepaway camp. Return to sleepaway camp. No, but seriously, like, um, Sleepaway Camp is just one of those movies that, like I said, I love it so much, and it's something I've watched multiple times, because it just feels like it was um, just a movie for its time, like and I think that's what appeals me because I'm so like wrapped up in that era of horror, especially the '80s and just slashers in general from the '80s. And it's never going to lose any kind of specialness to me
No,
personally. Um, and on top of that, meeting people from the movie like Felissa Rose, just and talking to her about stuff from the film and just her experience with it and everything. That adds layers to it too, to why we love that movie so much. The people that are fans of it, and I have multiple merchandise items from the film. I have the Sleepaway Camp, that a book that Jeff Hayes put out not long ago,
yeah.
and I've got like that
Me
the
and
vinyl
Chris
record
both
from,
had that.
yeah,
Now we
and
do.
there's just a lot of stuff out there. If it's Sleepaway Camp related, I'm more than likely going to pick it up. If it's anything Return to Sleepaway Camp, though, not probably not going to pick it up.
No,
Probably would just be shocked to see there any kind of merchandise for that film.
I would be too.
Um, but it's it's apples and oranges, people. It's some
Perfect
because
example of apples and oranges.
Return to Sleepaway Camp is, like I said, it's not one that I ever want to watch again, really. And so it doesn't have that same feeling to me, to where I just, I'm okay with watching a movie like the original Sleepaway Camp over and over. And then I watched the Return to Sleepaway Camp. It's probably been 15 years ago when I saw it, and maybe more than that. I don't. It
Yeah,
was
when it
released in
first came
2008.
out, and just like Chris, I was one and done. I just
Yeah,
had no desire to watch Return
and
to Sleepaway
that's
Camp.
that's the only compare and contrast that I can give on that is, yeah, just but watch what you like. I'm not discouraging anybody if you've never seen Return to Sleepaway Camp. Um, I just personally, that's how I feel about it, and I don't want to. But if you want to go and watch that movie, if you've never seen it, it's great. You should at least experience it to try to form an opinion on it.
Right.
But yeah, you just got to do you. You know what I mean?
Right. Now TJ's wanting to know, I guess, how many deadites each one of us give for
Okay.
each of the movies. So, Chris, since you just got finished talking about it, I'll let you. How many deadites do you give for Sleepaway Camp, for the original Sleepaway Camp?
Well, this may be my first ever 5 dead eye
All
ranking
right.
on here, but I'll give it Five Deadites,
Okay.
because
And I'll just say I will too, because that's what I had in my mind to give was 5 deadites out of 5.
and that may be your bias thing, but that's ranking is. It's my personal ranking, and because I love that movie so much. Like I said, it's one of my top slashers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said in the beginning of this stream, it was pretty much the reason why I ventured further into this obsession with horror films, slasher films, and to be specific. And I just I'm always it's always going to have a special place in my heart. Um, and yeah, just like but as far as Return to Sleepaway Camp,
And we need to give it 1, or you
I'm
can
gonna
give
be
it a 0.
generous and give it a 1, just because it has people from the original Sleepaway Camp in
Right.
it,
Okay. Good.
and
Good.
that's the only reason it's getting a 1. If I
Right.
could give it a half of a 1, I would, but
Well,
Dana's not figured
okay.
out the
Well,
halves yet.
we'll just say that because this gal don't have. I need to get off my lazy butt and do the halves. Um, but um, yeah, just visualize a half deadite there for me and Chris, because I would have to totally agree with him on both of his ratings for both of these films. You may never see us that in sync again, but that's okay. That's okay. That's why I like these apples and oranges
Uh,
show so well. Um, TJ says, by the way, did you see the new Gremlins tea Fright Rags put out? I
well,
saw that they had it out, but I haven't looked at it.
yeah, it's that Midnight Madness tea. It went on sale last night, and it's the sales are going to end on it tonight at 11:59 p.m. because it's like one of those 24-hour things they do. But that design is not really a new design by Fright Rag. The guy that did that is Kyle Crawford from Electric Zombie, and he has done shirts in the past for brand new designs for Fright Rags, but that particular design that's out that they just put out last night of Stripe with the chainsaw and everything, that is a design that Kyle Crawford from Electric Zombie created long time ago, and he's had that design up on the Electric Zombie website for a long time. Is like in like t-shirts and like baseball shirts and stuff. And so I was kind of shocked by that Fright Rags would put out a previously used design
Hmm.
as one of their shirts, because I've never seen Fright Rags do that before.
Yeah, that is unusual that they
Because I know that what's that guy's name? Justin Osborne, that does like all the Joe Bob designs, and he's done a bunch of other like Fright Rags designs. Now, usually he will have those designs on his website before they come onto Fright Rags, unless he's exclusively done them for Fright Rags. Um, but he doesn't have shirts. He has like posters and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But so any of the Justin Osborne designs, if the only time they've ever been on shirts is when they are distributed through Fright Rags.
Right.
But you can buy like his designs and like posters and stuff on his website, which I believe is slasherdesign.com. Um, but yeah, I was just kind of that's different. I was like, wow, because as soon as I seen them like announce that stripe shirt, I was like, yeah, that's Electric Zombie shirt.
TJ says, I got the other shirt Fright Rags did with Stripe and the chainsaw, but without the 3D glasses.
Hmm. That's another thing, and we'll probably talk more about that when you do the Gremlins watch along.
Hmm.
But go and when we watch Gremlins, you'll see it. There is not anywhere in the film where there's a gremlin wearing 3D glasses. That image that we have seen all over the internet was was edited by a fan years and years ago, and
Hmm.
there's a whole Reddit page on this you can go out and look for, where the guy that created that original image that has just been like kind of just put all over the internet of this gremlin sitting there with the 3D glasses, that does not exist in the film.
That's
So
interesting. It just goes to show how something that's kind of created out of popular culture.
yeah, like
Uh,
somebody's art, like
mhm,
edit of that, has been taken by all these companies, creating T-shirts and
yeah,
toys and all kinds of merchandise, and it's almost become like it's a part of the Gremlins like
yeah.
franchise canon or whatever. But it's something that was never in the films.
Mm. I guess it's just a cool
It is cool.
image.
I love that. I love that that guy, whoever did that, he made it look very realistic to like it
Yeah,
was a part of the film. But so he just must be really super good at editing. But it,
evidently.
but I didn't know that for a long time because I didn't like. But then when I found that, because this was probably about 5, 6 years ago or something, when I found that out because it was on one of these Gremlins groups I'm in on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh my god, are you serious?" It's like my life is a lie. How did I not know this? But once you find that out, and you go back and watch the movie again, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it's not."
Right. I was one of those people that thought that was in the film just
Yeah,
because I've seen
I,
that daggone image so many
I
times.
think everybody has, unless you just know that story. Like I said, it was years and years, and that's been my favorite movie for years. It is to this day. It's my favorite film of all time. But I didn't learn that till probably I guess about 5 or so years ago, something like that.
TJ says funny because it would have made sense in the actual movie, and he's right because aren't they in the? They're in a movie theater.
Well, but they're watching Snow White.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's not
they're
really,
not watching anything
you
that
can't
was.
watch that in 3D.
Uh-uh. Uh, Blissel says, Dana, it just hit me. You're a Gemini. Makes a note never to get Dana mad at me. Yeah, I got that dual personality thing going on there with
Yeah,
the
and I joke around this with Candace about this because our nephews Ray and Henley are both Geminis as well. And I said, and this is true. This is actually a fact. I learned this a while back. Is that it's in the history of serial killers,
Oh Lord.
there are more serial killers that are Geminis than any other
Oh man.
astrological sign.
Nobody's ever gonna trust me again. I'm gonna go crazy on
I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there.
no, that's fine. That's fine. Blissel says her aunt's birthday was today. TJ says, well, there's a dude with 3D glasses on
Well,
back
yeah,
in
but
the picture, and they
that's
never go
different,
through.
man. That's just that was part of his fashion sense.
And I did want to acknowledge that Candace said it was a great stream. Um, so I just wanted, she says great stream, guys. So I appreciate that, Candace. Um, but I guess we'll tie everything up. But before we go, uh, Chris is probably thinking, "Oh God, what is she going to show?"
Oh no,
I'm
go
going to
on.
show. I'm going to show one of the commercials that me and Steve did for the Deadites on Deck shop. Um, and I just wanted to share it with you guys again. I'm not trying to run it in the ground, but I think they're fun little commercials, and it was kind of Steve's idea to do these two commercials that we did. So if y'all want to hang around and see the commercial, that's fine. If you want to get the heck out of here, that's fine. Chris, if you want to hang around and
Yeah,
watch it,
I got nothing. I mean, it's 10:39 at night, Dana. What I gonna do?
yeah, it's 10:39. Yep. Hold on just one second here, and I will. Hopefully, I'll bring up the right. Yeah, here we go. This is the one of Steve. He's smelling his. Well, it's actually my Blu-ray. What are you doing?
Well, I like smelly candles and I like horror movies. I just wish I could put them together.
Yeah, you can, thanks to Deadites on Deck Car Shop.
What?
We have Freddy's Nightmare. You know what that sounded like, Steve?
Charred flesh.
Or charred
No,
flesh.
marshmallow.
Oh, I did it.
But we also have other scents.
I don't have any.
We have Henrietta Honeysuckle. We have the stuff. It's cupcake scented. We have the all new Christine's Fury cherry cola scented.
Cherry cola.
It's so great I can't even speak.
Cherry cola.
And Farmer Vincent's Critter Fritter. You know what scent that is, Steve?
Terror or horror motel?
No, bacon.
Bacon.
Yeah. It's bacon. Okay.
Kevin Bacon.
So do you know what else we have at Deadites on Deck?
There's no way you got t-shirts.
I just
What's this?
It's the all new I Love Robert England shirt.
How did I get this on?
I put it on you when you're sleeping. And you also have the Friday Foolish shirt with Dana and Candace that you can usually watch every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Wow.
So what else do we have?
I'm going to go take a nap.
We have Booga Booga Bears that you can customize with your favorite horror design.
I'm going to go take a nap.
Steve sleeps with his every night. That's actually mine, but he's running off with it. So, in addition to all of that, I'm not done yet. This is like, Steve's going to destroy my Booga Booga Bear. Okay, we have teas for. You need to put that up. Dorothy's
I
getting
got a Booga Booga dog.
So we have Terror Time teas. We have England's elderberry spice. Doesn't that look like Robert England to you?
Sure, let me take my. Yeah, it looks just like him.
We have Angela's Honeybee Sting.
Ding!
We have Bates Motel Breakfast Blend.
Breakfast blends.
Leatherface's Lemongrass.
Kiss my ass.
Herbert's Folly. And what else do we have? We have Mr. Joe Spinell drinking his tea. And guess what kind he's drinking, Steve? He's drinking Maniac Mint.
Whoa.
So, do you think everybody should go to deaditesondeck.com?
I think everybody should go with their SSI check or your paycheck and spend 35% of their total income on Dana's stuff.
Only 35%?
Okay, 48% of your monthly income.
Look at this great t-shirt that you can get.
Yeah. I heart with a glove. I heart gloves, Robert England. And this dog. You get a free dog with every purchase.
No, we don't have enough dogs to do that.
Oh.
Once 5 purchases was up, we'd be out of dogs, Steve.
Well, this is some great stuff, Dana.
Yeah.
Where can we get all this and more?
We can get this at the Deadites on Deck Horror Shop at deaditesondeck.com. Visit us now.
Visit often.
And spend a lot of money. No, just kidding. Bye, everybody. All right, enough advertising. That was the longer commercial, but you can see Steve's comedy routine.
Oh, I've watched it several times now. I love it. And because I think that Steve has some really animated facial gestures in there. It's almost like he's having a stroke or something.
Yeah, imagine living with Steve. You get to see that quite a bit more.
You know what you need to do, Dana? You need to make because where it's called Deadites on Deck. Like the the Uncle Sam like posters where like where he's like pointing like we want you for the U.S. Army. Instead, just have like that image of Deadeye Ash from Evil Dead 2 where he's pointing
Oh, yeah.
and like say we want you to shop at deadeyesondeck.com.
Yeah, I could probably do an AI version of that.
That would be so cool.
I'll try to come up with something. That's a great idea. I'm just trying to, I like the commercials a lot because me and Steve had a lot of fun making
Oh,
them.
they are fun. They're very fun to watch.
And I've had a lot of people tell me that they were funny, and that was completely off the cuff, just like Darcy barking. That wasn't intended, but we just threw her into the commercial.
Well, it was very, that I always feel like that's a very rare skill to have is when if you're doing like improvisational like duos type stuff like that. Because when I was a kid, I was about I guess fourth or fifth grade, I was in what was called the forensics team, and I ended up going into the poetry category, which ended up getting me going to the state competition for. But I originally wanted to do improvisational duo, me and my friend, but it's so hard to kind of come up with stuff at the spur of the moment, and in that moment, like you said, like Darcy wasn't supposed to be a part of that, but you just kind of played her in on the spot. And I felt like that was very like creative on both you and Steve's part, like just kind of tying her into that.
Steve is better at it than me. He's more spontaneous and off the cuff than I am, but I'm trying to, kind of follow his lead
Oh,
with
I
stuff
thought you, I
like
thought
that.
you did great, Dana. I thought your banter back and forth was really awesome. In
Now
that,
the other one, and I'll show the other one like when I do another live, like maybe tomorrow night or something when I do the Seductive Poison show. Which speaking of that, Chris, do you think you might want to come on for that one where I do the reviews?
uh,
Or
I possibly might. It's just kind of because the way our schedule goes, we don't really have a schedule. It just kind of like stuff happens, and then like, oh, okay, and then like this week I know is Vacation Bible School for Noah, and he's been going to that, and I didn't get to go tonight, but I don't know if I'm going tomorrow or not. I know I'm going to be going there on Friday because they have a big family like day at the end of the week at Vacation Bible School every year. So I'm going to be there on Friday. But tomorrow, I don't know. I'll let you know for sure while I'm at work tomorrow, though. I'll message you while I'm at work and let you know what's going on.
Okay. I totally understand either way. If you can, that's fantastic. If you can't, I know you're doing family stuff, and like I always say, family is top priority. It
Yeah.
takes precedence over everything.
Yep.
Uh, TJ says, Dana, next time you need a bathroom break, run the commercial. Well, I tell you what,
Good
TJ,
idea.
I will when I'm on here by myself, but when I have somebody else on here, usually I will wait till the end to show a particular commercial because, like in this case, I figure Chris can keep y'all entertained
Well, I'll
while
try.
while I'm running to the restroom or whatever I'm doing, grabbing something to eat. But yes, that is a perfect time to do that, especially when I'm on here by myself.
Um, Dana, I was wanting to mention one other thing to you. Because we on our Death by Stereo podcast channel on YouTube, and we also are on Spotify as well. If anybody is watching this and hasn't subscribed to us yet and they want to, I'd appreciate that.
Definitely do that, guys and girls.
We did, we had our new episodes about TerraVision and Video Dead this past Friday. And on the television one, where we're discussing the monsters right now, I brought that up towards the end of the episode about they're going to be rebooting the monsters again, and it's going to be more of a darker reboot. And James Wan is attached to it. So what's your feelings on that, Dana?
Well, this may not be, popular with people, especially people that are hardcore Rob Zombie fanatics, anything Rob Zombie does.
Mm,
I like Rob Zombie's music personally better than some of the movies he's tried to
yeah,
make, unless it's House of a Thousand Corpses or The Devil's Rejects or something
yeah.
like that. But actually, my eyebrows probably went up when James Wan was mentioned. I would actually like to see what James Wan could
I
do.
love James Wan.
Yeah.
I love the Insidious movies, and he was attached with like The Conjuring and Dead
Mhm.
Silence,
Yep.
and there's a really cool, like, it's kind of under the radar film that James Wan. I don't think he wasn't the director on it, but he was one of the producers. It's called Lights Out,
Okay.
and I really really like that one. But as far as anything that he's done, he worked on, I guess, the first couple of Saw films too, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but my favorite thing he's ever worked on is definitely Dead Silence. Did you say you had never seen that movie yet, or?
I have not seen it. I need to remedy that really
I think
quickly.
you would love it, Dana. Like, me and Candace and my brother-in-law CJ, everyone, we love it. We've watched it multiple times. I know that I've seen that the lady that actually plays Mary Shaw in Dead Silence is starting to do conventions, and she's a pretty older lady now. So I was actually, like, when I seen that she started doing conventions, I was kind of I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of shocked that she was still alive,
Yeah.
uh, because she's pretty old. But yeah, you gotta watch it sometime, Dana, and let us
Well,
know what you.
Candace says it's one of her favorite horror
Yeah,
films. So,
it's good. It's so good.
and TJ says in connection with the Munsters, he said, I like that Munsters with Jerry O'Connell and Eddie Izzard. He said, too bad it didn't
Oh
go to a
God,
series.
I didn't. I thought that was awful, but that's
I
just me.
don't think
I
I
mean, if
ever
you like
watched
it,
it.
that's awesome. That's cool if you like it, but it didn't do anything for me, especially because Eddie Izzard is playing Grandpa on that, and it's just it
Yeah.
does not have that Monsters vibe. I mean, if it was called, it would might have been good if it was called anything else other than, I think the show was actually it was called 1313 Mockingbird Lane or something like that.
Oh,
Uh,
you know what? I think I do remember that, the title of it.
but and I think it was just kind of like a one-off thing they did. I don't remember it being more than that, like, little pilot movie or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it was because I think, in, like, Eddie in the film, Eddie Munster, he was just like, he is a yeah, he's a werewolf in the original show, but in that one that TJ's talking about with Jerry O'Connell and Eddie Izzard, the Eddie Munster character in that, he turned into like a full-fledged werewolf. And then I think at the end, they show Spot, and it's like this CG version of Spot, which is their pet dragon on the Munsters. And I was like, oh my god, it's so bad. But but like I said, I'm not going to down anybody for liking that, though, because if you like that, that's awesome. Because there's a lot of stuff that I like is probably considered bad in people's minds, but that's how
Uh,
it goes.
Blissful, yes, you can drop the link for Wayne's video. So, if this is the video I'm thinking it is an awesome video. I'm believing that it's the one that Blissful sent me, and I watched. So, y'all go out and watch Blissful's friend Wayne's video. It is very, very good. I can vouch for that. Yeah, I'm proud of him too, Blissful, and I don't know him as well as you do. I just have interviewed Wayne one time. Uh, so yeah, he is a talented individual. So I would definitely, not only check that video out, but check any stuff out. Um, I'm sure Blissful could put out or give you some direction on where to find more of Wayne and his, things that he's worked on. Um, so I guess that's all for me tonight. And Chris, is there anything else you want to bring up before we get off of here for tonight?
I don't want to go to work tomorrow, but I have to, unfortunately, if I want to.
Is there something coming up that you don't want to experience? Or are you just like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow?
Well, Dana, it's just I've worked this place for over 5
You're
years.
burned out.
I am, but without going too much into it, I don't have much of a choice in my area because we don't have a lot of good job opportunities around here, and I make, I'm not going to say how much money I make, but it's a good amount to where I'm able to survive in today's economy. And it just has really good benefits. I mean, I keep the same schedule. I'm off on weekends. I'm off on federal holidays, and those are
Yeah.
paid. I mean, it's hard to get something like that. I really kind of lucked out with this, and I'm really grateful that I have this job, even though I don't care for it sometimes. But yeah.
Well, I know what you're saying, Chris, because I told Steve today, and I've told him before. I said, if I see an opportunity, and I've already talked about this with my supervisor, so if he watches this video, this is not going to be anything that's going to get me in trouble. He asked me today, my supervisor did, my boss, he said, do you want to stay with Smile Doctors? And he says, if so, do you want to stay on the help desk team or do you want to move somewhere else? And I said, well, I'll be totally honest with you. I would like to move into marketing, doing graphic design or web design or something like that. And he was really receptive to that. In fact, he said that if I wanted to, I could do some on the job training
Yeah.
with this lady that's in marketing. So I'm gonna tell him I'd love to do that if they could spare me for a
And
few
see,
hours.
I've been offered stuff like that too, as far as like switching positions within my company. Um, but there's really no much difference in like pay or benefits or anything. So like I'm like pretty comfortable where I'm at. Um, and but that's really good that you have those type of, because we don't have any kind of like creative design or anything of what I do. Like I mean, if you guys have like that, that's awesome. And it's really good that you show initiative about bringing that up to them, because I think that they will look at that, and have a heavy consideration for that. If you show that you have initiative and you have you're confident in that. So I mean, that could something you could work out for you on that, Dana. I hope it does.
Me too. But what I told Steve was, and I've told him this more than once, and I'm starting to say it more and more frequently since we were talking a little bit about burnout, is the fact that I told him that I felt like help desk work, that was a young person's game. And I just feel like I'm getting too old to do that kind of work anymore. I just um I try not to get irritated with people or anything, but I see myself getting irritable if, let's say I take a phone call from somebody and they're really hot under the collar and they're kind of being nasty to me. My first instinct, and I have to bite the inside of my jaw or whatever to keep from being nasty back. But I have to wonder how long before this frustration starts to come out. And I don't want that to jeopardize my job. So I would rather get out while I'm ahead and go on to something else
Mm-hmm.
where I would still be working as a team, but I wouldn't be working with the people at the clinics quite in the way that I'm working with them now.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Well, you also got to just look at it like this, Dana. Like, we live in a day and age where, if there's an opportunity that arises for us, we better take it,
Right.
because it's not getting any easier out there. Um, as far as like financially for a lot of people.
Right.
Um, you know, my dad, um, my dad will be, let's see, he just turned 69 years old last month.
Mhm.
And my dad still works. Still has a job that he works, almost every day of the week. And how he does it at his age, I have no idea. Because I am 37 years old, Dana, and I feel like almost on a daily basis, like my body is falling apart. And
Me
I
too.
work a desk job, but I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Why? I have no idea.
I feel like I've been run over by a Big Mac truck at the end of some days. And I'm
Yeah,
sure Chris knows what that
yeah,
feels
I know
like.
what that's like. But yeah, and like my like Kenneth said, my dad, he's retired. He is retired. Like he gets Social Security and stuff too from retirement, but he still works because he feels like he has to.
My dad's like that too, and my dad, as I've said, he's retired from the job that he had for many, many years working at the tile plant.
Yeah.
But now he's buying and selling things. And
See,
he
that's what I want to do, Dana.
yeah,
I
Dad
just want to.
absolutely loves it, and he's addicted to it.
Oh,
My
it's
mom, in
my
fact,
dream.
my mom says he's eat up on this stuff.
Like there's this guy that I follow on YouTube. His name is Froggy Flips, and
Mhm.
he lives out in Indiana. And like I think he has like a regular job he does, but like he makes a lot of his income from like what he does through his YouTube.
Yeah.
Because he all he does too is he just goes to like conventions and flea markets and yard sales, and like he picks stuff up, and at the end of his videos he gives comps, like comp sales from like what this item he picked up sells for on eBay stuff, and he does it. That's how he earns his living. And I think there is a lot of people that frown on that because like reseller stuff, but I tell you, in today's day and age, you got to do what you got to do,
Mhm.
because it's not getting any easier for anybody out here.
No. No. And, and dad, I think my dad with the buying and selling, and Chris probably
Yeah,
has this too because Chris does a little buying and selling of his
I
own.
do.
Is that my dad likes talking to people, or as my mom puts it, he likes bullshitting with people.
Yeah, that's
You
what I call it too. And like I do that because I'll tell you something, Dana. That's just something I love interacting with people,
know?
especially when it comes to something that we have the same interest in. That's why I love doing these streams with you.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I go and I sit up at the flea market a lot on Sundays here in Hazard, and I just love seeing some of the people that I don't even know them a lot of the time. That would just come up and then we'll start conversing about like something that I'm related to what I'm selling on my table or whatever, and I love that, and that's why I would love to do like what your dad's doing. He goes and he
Hmm.
and communicates with people, and he buys his stuff and all it and sells it, and that's what like that guy I was talking about on YouTube that I watch does. And I'm like, that's the dream right there. I said, when I retire, I'm gonna be like Dana's dad. I'm just gonna go and do all this stuff.
Maybe I could. I tell Steve he needs to like get hooked up with my dad, but he would never do it because Steve. I love my husband, but he doesn't want to put the time into it that you have to put into something like this. Chris knows what I'm talking about. You have to be willing to go to all these different sales and get your
Yeah,
product.
yeah,
And then you have to be willing to go to other sales and sell what you've accumulated. And Steve's not a people person, guys and gals. Again, I love
it does take a certain liking to the hobby, because I consider it a hobby
yeah,
doing that. It's just fun, it's just something that's fun. Like me, and even if we're not buying stuff to resell or anything. Me and Candace just love going to like
Yeah.
Goodwill, thrift
The
stores.
hunt is,
The
and see,
hunt
Steve
is, and
doesn't
it's the
like
same thing at conventions. You go to conventions, these vendors and stuff, and they have all kinds of stuff. Like, oh my god, I haven't seen these in like 20 years or something.
yeah.
And it's just the thrill of that, of finding that stuff. Even if you don't buy it, if you just see it somewhere, like I go. It's like Blissful says, it's treasure hunting,
Yeah.
and because it might be trash to some people, but to somebody like us, it's a treasure. And yeah, it's it's the dream, Dana. I'm gonna
I
be doing it one of these days. Me and your dad will be out there
Yeah,
competing
I'm gonna
with
say
one
you
another.
should get connected to my friend Chris. I'm gonna tell Dad that because Steve would never do it because Steve doesn't enjoy that hunt. Like there have been a couple of times where Wes and Sarah have came to Louisville,
Hmm.
and Wes primarily has wanted to go to the Goodwills around town.
Oh yeah,
They
West.
want to go to the record shops, and Steve's like, I ain't doing that anymore. He just got worn
Well,
out, and
what the thing is though, I think what the difference is because Steve has always lived in Louisville, right?
well, I mean, except when he was younger, he
Right.
grew
So
up
the
in
majority of his life he's lived in Louisville, right? So he's probably just like maybe burnt out on that because he's been around that stuff, like all this, these good treasure hunting places. It's in because there is a ton like stuff like that in Louisville, and he's
yeah,
probably just kind of accustomed to that. And it's kind of I can understand if it would be boring because if I was like that and I grew up around that stuff all the time, it would end up becoming boring to me. But like somebody like me, for example, or Wes, because we're from southeastern Kentucky,
yeah,
we have places like that in this area, but not a lot. And the places that we do have are always usually picked by the scalper people around here and
yeah,
stuff. And the big that's because that's what they do for a living is this, which that's fine. I'm not talking against that in any way, because like I said before, somebody you got to find yourself an income somehow, regardless of what it is. But it just makes it tough at the same time. It's a double edged sword. It really is, because at the same time it makes it tough for collectors and stuff to, when we have very little stuff like that in this area. But a place like Louisville has a ton of stuff, and maybe that's why Steve is burned out on it, because he's done, he probably did do it at one point in his life, and he's just not into it anymore, which is understandable. There's a lot of stuff that I've gotten burned out on in the past, and just didn't really feel like. Sometimes I get burned out on stuff in wrestling,
yeah,
and then I'll give it a break for a little bit. Like actually, I've not been watching it that much here lately. But after a while, I might get back into it. And the same thing can be said about Steve. He may one of these days he might change his mind and want to go to stuff like that again.
yeah, maybe. I would hope I could wake up every day thinking, well, maybe this is the day that Steve would change and he wants to do this stuff.
Never know. People are unpredictable. Sometimes I surprise myself. Like we even talked about that, me and you earlier. Like when what we were discussing when we said we would never, like we never thought we'd feel that way about something. But then here we was finding ourselves, feeling that way. What was it?
Daggone it, I can't remember what we said an
You
hour.
know, you know what I'm saying. That we were talking about that earlier, though. Like because you
I'm
brought
gonna
it
have to
up.
go back and scan through this stream and see what we talked about. TJ does bring up, this is off the topic of buying some, but he says, Happy birthday, final exam, 43 years. Yeah, I love final exam. I don't care what CK and Uncle Bill say about final exam. I'm gonna love it too. Blissful says, I question many things about Steve for not liking bacon. I know a lot of people say that about Steve. They can't believe he doesn't like bacon. Candace says, Chris and I are addicted to thrifting. My grandparents were antiquers, so I grew up learning the trade. It's just something that I've always felt at home doing. Uh, Okay. Well, guys and gals, I would love to keep going on about this, and we can have another chat about thrifting and and collecting. In fact, me and Candace are going to be talking about
Yeah,
retro toys and stuff
that's gonna be
this Friday.
fun. I've already told Candace. I said, listen, if I for some reason I'm not able to join you all on Friday, or even if I'm on there for just a little bit, like I've already like pulled some stuff out that I want her to show if I'm not able to show it, because that's a big thing. Me and her, like we're working on a shelf. We were talking about this idea. It was her idea about because we have some of those arcade one up like retro arcade game machines, and we have them in our kitchen. They were like in our family room, but we moved them to the kitchen. And it's one little like corner because where there wasn't anything there anyway. And I was like, oh, those look good there. So she came up with the idea tonight of putting these little shelves above the arcade machines and just have them all like little loose toys from the
Oh,
80s and 90s and stuff. I'm like, oh man, that's such a good idea.
yeah.
And but yeah, and I'm sure she's got a bunch of stuff she's already pulled out that she wants to show on Friday as well. So everybody that
What I
likes,
wish I could find is my Freddy Krueger doll.
yeah, that would be really awesome for you to show. Which I
If
think
I
she
can
might have
find it,
something
I'll
like
show
that.
it.
Like she doesn't have like the Freddy one, but she's got some pull string dolls. I think she's going to show off on Friday. And anybody don't miss. That's a don't miss episode
Yes.
of Friday Foolish, everybody. Because if you like that kind of stuff, you're probably going to see some really cool stuff and have some flashbacks to some childhood memories.
To a simpler time when we didn't all have jobs and we wasn't
Yeah,
worried about things all the time.
exactly.
Uh, Candace said that I believe that's going to be a fun show. I agree, Candace, and Blissful agree. She said it will definitely be a fun show. Um, but I guess since it is after 11 o'clock, we've been on here for 3 hours.
Been a fun topic though. I mean,
It was fun though. It was definitely fun. And again, I have to give credit to Chris for coming up with this one because he did mention Sleepaway Camp and Return to
I love
Sleepaway
Sleepaway
Camp.
Camp. I mean, what can I say?
But we're gonna call it a night because we both got work tomorrow.
Yeah.
I may or may not have work tomorrow. I was feeling pretty good during the majority of this, but here right at the end, I don't know if it's sinuses or what, but I'm getting sort of kind of dizzy feeling, and the aching is starting to come back. So this gal may or may not be working, and I hope I'm not sick on my.
Regardless, either way, feel better, Dana. Take care of yourself and get some rest.
I will try my best. Candace says, great live and happy early birthday, Dana. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Candace.
Happy early birthday, Dana. And we
Thank
love
you,
you.
everybody. Well, I love all you guys and gals too.
Everybody here does. Yep.
I hope there's nobody that hates me in here.
Well, if they do, then you need
What
to
the
get
heck
out.
am I doing in here?
Thanks for stopping by for 3 hours, but now you can get out.
Thank you, Blissful. Blissful's wishing me a happy early birthday too. I love each and every one of you guys and gals too, Candace. And I always tell Candace and Chris I love them. Although I don't, I feel odd just telling Chris directly that I love him, but because I don't know, I don't feel
Did you
weird.
call him a man, Dana?
No, no. I just have a hard time telling a man though that I love him, other than my dad and Steve.
Well,
You know,
it's
but I don't feel weird when you say you love me. You know.
well, I just not to get religious on everybody, but I go by, that message that love thy brother, love thy neighbor, love one another. And that's how I feel, regardless, I might get frustrated with some of my friends sometimes. I might get frustrated with Candace, and she gets frustrated with me.
Yeah.
But in the end, we're there for one another. We love each other, and I feel that way about all my friends and people that are acquaintances. I care about everybody that's in my life because if they're showing the effort to want to be my friend or anything, then I'm going to show that effort right back and and let them know that I care about them.
However, I do when I end a conversation or end my side of a conversation when me and Candace are sending voice messages back and forth, I will say, I love y'all, meaning
Yeah,
I love Candace, Chris, and Noah.
because I look at you like a sister. I know Candace does too. I just think she said that she's like, don't feel odd, Dana. You're like our sister, exactly. And I think there's other people, in here that feel that same way about you, and it's like, So don't, if you ever say that to me, Dana, if you feel comfortable saying that to me, then
Well, I
don't
may
ever
accidentally
feel
say
odd.
it because out of habit.
Because I love Steve. I love you. I love Wes there, and I love all my friends. And
Right. Yeah,
if I tell you I love you, then I genuinely mean it. So that's that.
and I do love you, Chris. It's just sometimes I wonder, how is this,
I get why I get it. Like because you don't never know how the person's gonna react to it. So, but I say it, and I only hope for the best because I don't want to
there you
make
go.
anybody feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just you gotta say what I feel. You know what I mean?
That's like my Aunt Sandy. She's a hugger. She will hug everybody. She'll even hug somebody she doesn't like. She's just like that.
Well, I mean, I just think like you know at my age, from the generation I'm from, and you're from that same generation because you're just 10 years older than me, Dana.
Yeah.
And but we had a lot of role like because one of my heroes is Jim Henson, another is Fred Rogers, Steve Irwin. I love people like that because it always created a positive message. I know, some people are like, well, you can't have positivity and everything, but you maybe there's not positivity in everything, but you can at least try to create positivity out of it. That's all, So, and then I think that was, something that a lot of those guys, like I said, like Jim Henson, Fred Rogers, were trying to create, and that's why I've kind of grown up that way, just feeling that way.
Right. And that's a good way to be. I love what Candace always tells me that you guys do. You guys will not leave a room without telling everybody else you love them.
Well, yeah, and I know, and that's something that our son Noah, he definitely does. Like, he will
Yeah.
not leave the room with, even if like he's mad about something, he still won't leave the room without telling us that he loves us. And I love that about that
Yeah.
fella.
Yeah, Noah is. I'm here to tell you guys and gals, and I'm not being biased because I'm his godmother or anything. But that is one of the best kids I've ever been around in my entire life. Candace and Chris have raised that kid up right, and any kid in the world would be blessed to have them as parents. Any kid in the world. But Noah got the gold star when he got them for parents. And I'm not just saying this because Candace and Chris are two of my best friends in the whole world. I'm saying this because it's true. You don't see that kind of parenting going on too much these days. So
I appreciate that, Dave. I'm sometimes it's hard for me to take compliments like that because I don't hear it a lot, but I really appreciate that.
yeah, I have to say it. It's the truth, Chris. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. So, um, Candace says, if I heard you say I love you too, Chris, I wouldn't think anything of it at all. But I understand where you're coming from. I'd be the
Yeah, I
same.
definitely get it though, Dana, because like I said, because I think I have like said that before to like one of my friends in the past, and they're like, "What? You love me?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I care about you. You're my friend, and I care if anything happened to you. I would, I just feel like that's a form of just telling people you love them. Not like you're in love with them or anything.
Right.
I mean,
The difference
there's a difference. There's a big difference there.
Candace says, thank you for saying that, Dana. I try to do right by him. I don't always feel like the best, but I do anything for him. And see, any parent that says those things, that's a good parent. I think that way of my parents. That doesn't mean I always got along with my parents. I butted heads with my parents, especially when I was a teenager, like a lot of other people did when they were a teenager. You get to be a teenager, you think you know it all. And you're
Yeah.
good. And my dad is a good person. I'm sure he was a good kid. But let me tell you a story about my dad. I promise we're going to get off here. Let me tell you the story about my dad because it's kind of funny. When my dad was a teenager, it they had a really icy night. The roads were obviously slick. But when you're a kid, you think you know better than your parents, right? Chris, I'm sure, has went through this with his parents and Candace and Steve and everybody has done this at some point in time. So my dad's mom, dad wanted to go out with his brothers and ride around in the car with them because that's what was cool back in the 70s. And Gran told him, said, you boys don't need to be going out on that icy road. You'll get in an accident. And what did my dad say? Oh, mom, you're being silly. Or he might have, I know this is not a he might have used the R word. I'm not gonna say that because I don't want to offend anybody, but uh he he may have said that word to her. Back in those days, though, it was kind of an insult, but it didn't have the bad connotations that it does now.
Right. Yeah. It was just a family.
So,
Yeah.
so they went out in the car, and guess what happened? Mama knew best, didn't she? Because they ended up flipped upside down, and Dad was still in the car screaming for his brothers to come get him out. He was hanging upside down. I said, well, you learned to listen to your mom, didn't you, Dad? He said, well, yeah, kind of. But, and my dad told me other things, some of it was my papaw that he had interaction with. And, my dad got mad one time and threw his pocket knife in the pond, and my papa said, "What'd you do a stupid thing like that for?" Dad just got mad and just slung the knife. He said, "No, you don't have your pocket knife." My dad saw my mom with a friend of hers. This is when my mom and dad were dating. Keep in mind, my dad had a Mustang, guys and gals. I would, well, not kill. I'd almost kill to have a Mustang. Okay. My dad saved his nickels and dimes and pennies and all that, and he got him a Mustang. Okay. Mustangs are cool ass cars. I don't care who you are, they're cool ass cars. So Dad was driving by in his Mustang and he had a friend in the car with him. And he drove by and saw my mom and a friend of hers. And her friend was talking to two other guys, but Dad got in his head that Mom was flirting with those two guys too. He got mad and he spun out of there. And Mom said he ran his Mustang right into a ditch. And the guy, his friend that was in the front seat, busted his nose, blood went everywhere. And of course, Dad
Wow.
had to have his Mustang fixed because he ran it into a ditch, all because he thought Mom was flirting with some other guy.
Man,
So
that's
I could tell plenty of stories about my parents, but I can say that for another day. But
we're men, Dana. What can I say? we're we're bullheaded sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes I'm bullheaded. Women can be just as stubborn as men. That's no lie there. Candace says my dad had a cherry red 1967 Mustang. Oh
Oh
my,
yeah, yeah.
dad's was a gold Mustang. I'm forgetting the year. But man, a cherry red
Yeah,
67.
there's some pictures of it somewhere because when Noah was about 2 or 3 years old, he's sitting on the hood of it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there's pictures of it somewhere on Candace's Facebook, I'm sure.
Oh man, yeah. I don't even drive, and I'd just like to have
Yeah.
one to sit in the driveway.
I'm the same way. I mean, I don't drive either, but I love a lot of older cars like that, like you know, um, the Hemi Cuda in
Oh,
Fantastic.
I want that damn car too,
Dude,
and
that's my favorite. It's my favorite movie car ever.
the Plymouth Fury from Christine. I'd
Yeah,
like to have one of those. Muscle cars in general,
yeah.
I love them. I love muscle
And I
cars.
know Candace likes that stuff a lot too, so that maybe that might be a good topic for a Friday Foolish sometime.
Yeah, yeah, I'd definitely be up for that. But really, guys and gals, we've had story time with Dana and everything else, so we probably should get off here and try to get some rest. I may or may not have work, but I know Chris is going to have work, so he's got to get some rest. And I hope everybody has enjoyed this edition of Apples and Oranges tonight. Um, and I want to thank Chris for being on here with me, as always. And I want to thank all the people that we had in chat tonight. We had a pretty full chat, and it was active during the majority of the stream, which I do appreciate. And I guess me and Chris will skedaddle on out of here for the night. We're off like a dirty shirt. And I want to remind everybody to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And thank you, Candace, for saying it was a great show. And also, Candace says her favorite car is a 58 Chevy Bel Air, which
Yeah.
is also a cool car. So we're out of here. So bye, everybody. We'll
Bye,
see you
everybody.
next
Have a good
time.
night.